think we're ready to start. And we've already had 2 days of the reading workshop, if you're new coming, and now we're starting 2 days of the writing. So, and we've already kind of gotten to know each other, but we have new people. So we thought, we thought, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves again, because we have new people here, new teachers in the district that would need to get to know the middle school people who have joined us, and Beth joined us. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves again.
I'm Amy Widjack. I teach Title I reading and reading recovery. I'm at Wilson, Roosevelt, and Holy Family, and I've been in the district for 25 years now, and most of my experience is in 2nd and 3rd grade classroom. 2 children. My son is in college, and my daughter will be a senior this year at Hayes High.
I'm Mary Straub, and I'm at Roosevelt, and I'm also reading recovery Title I teacher. We'll be doing ELA support also at the middle school this coming year. I am married to Marty, who is the high school principal. I have 3 daughters, and one is married, lives in Virginia, teaches middle school Spanish. One is married and lives in Wichita and is a nurse, and she has my only grandson. And then I have my youngest, who is just moved to Kansas City and is adulting, she says, and working at KU Med. She sent me a Snapchat this morning of her just standing at the nurse's station with her hair just dripping wet and her scrubs are wet, and she said, and on my 4th day of adulting, I ran into a hurricane. So she's finding that this adulting thing is just a little bit, trickier than maybe she thought, but she's doing well, so.
That's funny because my son, Jake, goes to Fort Hays, and he lived in the dorms for 1 year, and now he's moving into his own place with friends, and he said, well, Mom, I think I just want to live there, but I just want to come eat every meal at home. It's like, really? Who doesn't want that? You're going to have to actually go grocery shopping and buy groceries. I'm Laura Gaughan, and I'm title in reading recovery at O'Laughlin, and this will be my 26th year. And a little known fact about me is I actually taught middle school my first 3 years of teaching, and I loved it. Well, it's a small school, but I really did love that. Let's see, my kids. Kylie's married, she's an SLP, and Zach's in med school, and Jake's at Praise.
I'm Keisha B, and I've been here, this will be 27 years coming up this year. And I was at O'Laughlin for 18 in the classroom, 2nd and 3rd grade, so I had a lot of experience in the classroom, which helps now with Title I and reading recovery that I do at Lincoln. I'm also ELA support, I believe it'll be for 8th grade at the middle school this year, and also at Lincoln. Do a little part-time at Roosevelt too, so I move around. Every school is awesome in Hayes. I did learn that. I used to think, the school I'm at was the greatest in the world. So it's been really nice to get to know all the teachers, and I think we're very fortunate. We have a lot of support at the administrative level for the workshop, and so that helps a lot. I have 3 kids. I'm also married. Don't really talk much about him. But Anna is adulting too. She's been in the adult world now a year. So she had her year anniversary at her company in Kansas City, and she loves the city. We went to visit them a couple weeks ago when she drove us around. Holy cow. On the tail of the car, to rip around, in and out of lanes. Oh, and look at that over there. I'm like, no, just look at that. So, anyway, she's adapted well to city life and loves it. She's married and has a little dog that's just so adorable. I can't imagine what it's like to be a grandma, because I love that little dog. They're coming this weekend to visit, so I'm excited to see them. And Ethan is starting college at Fort Hays, so had lots of changes this year. Anna got married in December. Ethan graduated from high school. Claire graduated from 8th grade and is starting high school at Hayes High next year. So busy life.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
I'm Caitlin Becker. I'm from here in Hayes. I'll be teaching second grade at Lincoln. This will be my first year. I'm not married and I'm not engaged, but I just got a puppy a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
That's where my life's at.
What kind?
An eagle. Her name's Kirby.
Aww.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Moritz. I'm from Hayes. I'm teaching first grade at Wilson, first year, but I've actually been in the district for 4 years, kind of had all sorts of jobs. My parents are both just employees in the district. My mom's at Roosevelt, my dad's at middle school. My brother's teachers, so kind of just family of teachers.
Okay, I am Amy Woolridge. I also am from Hayes. I will be teaching kindergarten and Laughlin. I also just recently got a puppy a couple months ago. And
What kind, Amber?
he's a mix. He's a
Oh, he's a
border
mix.
collie, corgi, and perceiver.
Oh.
And then also, like I kind of already know, so I'm getting married next summer, and I'm having a double wedding with my kid sister.
And she's marrying Zach Binder, because I know a lot of you probably know Zach Binder. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm Sue Pallister. I have been at home the last 2 years, being a full-time grandma. I was lucky enough to get back into the district. I've been a classroom teacher 10, 12 years, and I've been in the library 10 or 11 years, I guess, at Washington. And I'll be at Lincoln in the library and at Roosevelt. My husband also lives in the district. He's at middle school. And I have 2 daughters. One's in Omaha. And the daughter with the grandchild is here.
Yeah. Very
So,
nice.
she'll be kindergarten next year. She's 5. So, fell in place.
We're so lucky to have Sue come back to the
Yes.
district, because she taught, I had the privilege of working with her at Washington all those years, and phenomenal teachers. We're so glad you're back, Sue.
I'm Gabrielle Oddie, and I taught her. Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah, she was my teacher assistant many, many years ago. I'm at the middle school. I teach 6th grade language arts and reading. I have 3 kiddos in the district. I have 1 coming to the middle school, and then I have 2 that will be at Lincoln next year.
Well, you don't look old enough to have.
I did, yes.
Wow.
I don't even think you were one of my very first, and I had Zach. I don't think she was one of my first classes. I think you were in a couple of years, yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm Marilyn Engel, and I teach in the middle school, and this will be my 28th year teaching. And I've taught all but 5 years at a middle school, either here or in Rose Hill, Kansas, and I absolutely love middle school.
I'm Savannah Downing, and this is my first year in the district. I'll be teaching 7th grade reading and 8th grade language arts. I taught at La Crosse High School previously. And then I have 2 daughters. One will be in 2nd grade, one will be in 1st grade. My son just turned 4 yesterday, and then I have a daughter on the way.
Very exciting. Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Dillon, and I will be the school psych at Lincoln Roosevelt. This will be my first year here. I'm from Russell, and the last 9 years I was the school psych at Russell. I have a boy who will be in 1st grade, and a little girl that's 4. Okay, don't move. I'm Kim Fawnenstill. I teach at QVC. This is my 9th year of teaching. I have my first certificate in art, but I've never taught art.
My name is Julie Mohi, and I'll be teaching 3rd grade this year at Lincoln. This is my 6th year teaching. I'm from Omaha, so I taught in Omaha, South Dakota, Blue Springs, Missouri, and then in North Carolina. So I'm glad we're settled here with my husband, and I'm a dog mom. I have a little 3-pound Yorkie, so right now that's my kid.
And
A Maltese and a Yorkie.
My name is Alyssa Deese, and I'm going to be teaching 3rd grade at Wilson and sharing a part-time position with Mrs. Barber. And my family just moved here to Hayes from Goodland. My husband's an attorney with Clinkscales, and we have a daughter who's going to be in middle school and a daughter who's going to be a kindergartner. I did Christian education in different churches for the last 10 years, and then I went back to get my master's in teaching so I could be in the classroom. And this is my first teaching job.
Yay.
Tiara Lesage, and it'll be my first year in the district, and my 5th year teaching. And I have one 6-month-old daughter in the class.
I'm Alicia Knight. I just moved here. I'm going to be moving here tomorrow. From Gardner. I've been teaching there for the last 3 years. So I'm moving my husband and I have a 1-year-old daughter moving this way, and I'll be at O'Loughlin teaching 4th grade and then 5th grade. Also a dog mom. I have a dog as well. She's a mix. She looks like a black golden retriever.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Jay from State Farm. David Hughes. I'll be teaching special ed, half-time at middle school and half-time at KBC.
What is KBC?
It is the mental hospital, I guess. Is that what you described? Yeah. I've taught 12 years altogether, 9 years in middle school, and the last 3 years I've been teaching special ed over at kindergarten. I'm in Concordia. I was working with kindergarten. Which was totally different for me, but I enjoyed it, and so decided to get my provisional certificate and continue to do special ed. That's what I've been doing. I have actually 4 kids of my own, and I adopted a girl. She's 15, so all the other kids are out of school. 2 are married, and I have 1 grandchild here in Hayes. That's why I want to move to Hayes.
Yes. The best.
No pets.
I'm Beth Bosowski, and I'm from White, Nebraska, and I'll be teaching 1st grade at O'Loughlin. But I actually started in the district in December. First year.
And done a great job. She's been awesome.
I'm Zach Nelson. This will be my 2nd year teaching. I've been in the district for 8 years. I'm doing odds and ends. I'm at the middle school. This will be my 1st year as 6th grade special ed. I had a 5-year-old son. He'll start kindergarten this fall, and then we just had a little girl this last May.
Awesome. Okay. Expectations. We kind of already did this at the beginning, but we can say it again. We will do a lot of reading in class, and that's so that you don't have assignments, you don't have to do anything when you go home. It's a much better way. It's a gift of time to you. So we just ask that you read whatever we're asking you to read, and be so quiet when you finish reading. You could always read ahead if you get done, and sometimes even turning pages, or if you start talking to the person beside you, it's hard for someone else to finish reading. So just be really respectful in that way, and try to have your technology off and cell phones quiet, and I guess we're about ready.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
My AirPlay doesn't want to switch over. What am I doing wrong here? It's got this on it, but it won't change.
While they get that ready, I can say a little bit. I've already said this to the reading group. I'm sorry you're reading it again, but just a little bit of background of how we got to the workshop. Of course, there was No Child Left Behind with the big 5: phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension. Okay, thank you. And notice there was no writing in there. So then we changed our state adopted Common Core. And Common Core was really all about reading and writing. Writing is equally as important to reading. And we decided, okay, a basal is not going to cut it for meeting the needs of Common Core. So Joanne Jennings, who studied reading her entire life and went 3 times to New York City to the Teachers College, she studied this and brought it back and said, this is what's best. This is best practice for kids. And we need to go with this in our district. And that's how we got the workshop back here. Her with Shannon Inkle and Mark Hoffman. They decided this is best practice. And the writing workshop has been around for 30 years, I believe. But these lessons weren't written out for you like this. The materials weren't written out. But it's been around a very, very long time. The reading is new, but the writing is not. So, I don't know, anything to add to that,
I would
girls?
say many teachers across the nation have been doing the writing workshop for a very long time.
It's just
and-
easier now.
Right. And now Lucy added the writing piece of it when the Common Core came along because it required a different kind of rigorous reading. So I think it's interesting that there's a real history with the writing workshop, and I've been in this business 30 years, and I've heard about the writing workshop, but never about a reading workshop format until recently. So,
And also the workshop is around the world. It was very interesting to hear Joanne talk about when she went to the Teachers College in New York City to Lucy Calkins' workshops. And she would say, there were teachers there from Jordan, there were teachers there from Afghanistan, right? There were teachers there from all over the world doing the workshop, so that's kind of cool. And also, we'll show you the Facebook page. Well, we probably can't get into it, but we'll tell you about it. And when you read the Facebook blog about the workshop, some of the people on there talk about, yeah, I'm in North Carolina and I'm struggling with this, or I'm in Japan and I just started the workshop. So that's kind of cool too, that it's around the world.
and it's interesting too when you read that Facebook page that some of the teachers are just doing this endeavor by themselves. And so I feel lucky that we have the support of the administration and that we have our colleagues that are also going to be walking this walk with us, because it is a hard walk. I'm not going to lie to you about that, but the more you rely on the other people around you, the easier it is. So,
Absolutely.
you know, there's a few brave souls out there that are going it alone because that's how passionate they feel about how this is best for kids. So, and they purchased their own materials, and you know, they just really invested just because they believe so much this is what's good for kids.
Please don't, if you're a new teacher, you're young, please don't sit in your room and, because I was like this too, like pretending you have everything under control, but you really want to ask for help, but you're just afraid to. Please don't do that, please. Teachers are the best people in the world, and teachers in the rooms beside you want to help you and will help you, so please ask. And ask us anytime you need help, and your colleagues. It's really important.
We're all in it together.
We are all in it together, yes.
We are. We're all
and as
learning
Mary
together.
said, it's not easy. It is a whole different way of thinking from using a basal if you've done that before. So it's some work, for
We
sure.
learn so much from you when you guys come with our questions. We meet once a week as an ELA support staff, and we bring your questions and bounce ideas off of each other, and we share what other teachers are doing in the other schools. And it's just been probably the first time ever in USD489 that there is continuity among all the elementary, and now we're bringing in the middle school because you guys get the elementary kids, and it's just a great support system. I just can't brag about it enough. If I go out of Hayes and talk to other teachers, I think they're surprised at the collaboration, and we know from research teachers that collaborate have the best results from their kids. So we learn from you guys too, so don't be afraid to ask for help.
Or tell us when things are going really well. We also like that. You have something, we love it when somebody comes in with something that a child has said or written or done and said, wow, look at this, I can't believe this. And those small celebrations sure go a long way in boosting us to continue, down the path of, just makes it easier when you know, oh yeah, we're seeing results, and we're not in the classroom to see those every day like you are, so please share those with us. We get excited.
I'm sorry, we've also added Yammer. I don't know how many of you are on Yammer. I think it's something we can share with you. You don't know about it, we can maybe talk about that on Friday too, but it's another way to collaborate within the district, and Yammer groups for kindergarten Yammer or whatever, every grade level. Special ed can have a Yammer group, middle school, language arts, whatever, but we're also part of those. And teachers can post resources or a great idea or maybe a video of something or whatever, or a question, or just, we've kind of started in with that this year with our teachers, and it goes, you get it in your email, and then you go to Yammer on your, it's an app, and you can, it's like Facebook, you know, a blog, if you will, and you can comment back and ask questions, and that's a great way to share out something too. It's another way to connect.
And I think we just have it K-5 for now, is that right? Do we have middle school on Yammer yet?
I don't know, did Marie come out and?
Has Marie talked to you about that? Okay. She probably hasn't done it yet, but she probably will.
She went to each building and got everybody signed up in the elementary grades, and for the new people, we just give you,
Help you
Yeah.
get started on it.
give you the information. It's not hard.
One of the reasons why this is hard, it feels hard, is that it's very rigorous, first of all, to meet the Common Core. And another reason why it seems hard is that it is written assuming that your kids, if you're teaching 4th grade, that your kids have had the workshop kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's why it feels hard also. So it's just hard to jump in for the first time when the kids have never had it. That's another reason why it kind of feels hard.
So the lower grades, you guys have it easy because now everybody, last year kindergarten group had it for 2nd through, I think probably, 5th grade, so going into 6th grade, they would have had it, but it's not like they've grown up in it. And so that is where you will find some holes, some backfilling, and really not just because they haven't grown up in workshop, but because of the district, we kind of didn't have a set writing program at all. And so it was just kind of up to the teacher whether they taught it or not and how they taught it. And so probably the writing is
Inconsistent.
your kids, unfortunately, coming in at the middle school probably have a very inconsistent background in writing.
But I would say, in teachers that I know anyway, and you guys tell me if you agree, that the writing, the teachers are most impressed with.
Right.
And between the reading and the writing, they're like, well, I like the reading too, or yeah, the reading's going okay, I need to get better. Love the writing.
Yes.
My kids are writing, just doing amazing things with their writing. That I would say from teachers I've talked to. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes, and I think it's because it's more concrete. It's, also just a little bit of instruction can make a huge shift in a child's writing. And so I think the teachers are seeing the gains quicker in the writing piece. And the kids are, at least in the elementary and even the upper elementary, are loving it. They don't want to go to recess. They want to write, and they want to,
And never before has that happened before. Kids are, Dana Crawford, kindergarten teacher at O'Laughlin, she said that her kids would say, can we just stay in and write instead of going to recess? She's like, no, get outside and play.
I need to go to the bathroom.
We had some teachers in the pilot program, and one of them said, I really like this at the end of the pilot year. Is everybody going to do this? Please don't take this away from me because I don't want to teach any other way. She was worried maybe she wouldn't get to do it anymore. So
many veteran teachers have said, this is the way we should be teaching. This is what is best for kids. And they've been maybe teaching for 25 years and they say, oh my gosh, it's hard, it's not easy, and it's a lot of prep, but it's best practice. It's what's best for kids for sure. And Lucy also said that the writing lessons and your prep is the lessons are written a little longer. She says she's kind of sorry about that. Yeah. But they're a little bit longer and more, maybe I don't know about the middle school, because that was written later, so maybe they're better.
Yes.
Maybe. I hope so.
Says no.
No? Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, we're going to just backtrack for about 4 minutes. Yesterday, we talked in great depth about management and how important the management piece is to ensuring your efficiency and success of your workshop. And I know we have been and will continue to show you some professional videos from Teachers College. And teachers can, and everyone of course can look at that a little skeptical and say it's rehearsed, or I don't think they are. They don't appear that way to me. But it is, I guess what you would think. They're not perfect, but they're ideal situations. So I have been so excited about what I have been seeing with my students, my struggling readers, and what they bring into the reading recovery classroom, the language that they use, the amount of awareness in themselves as far as where they're at as a learner, what they're learning, and part of my job is the ELA support. So I was very interested to just if a student is absent or gone, I was just went into the classrooms and wanted to observe and see what was happening, what they were doing, because I had a really good feeling about it. So I actually ended up taking some very short video clips of classrooms here in Hayes that, right down the hallway from me. And this video was not, she didn't know I was coming. I just came that morning and said, would you mind if I come in and observe today? I have a student gone. I'd like to just see how things are going and learn from what they're doing so that I can help other teachers when I go over to Wilson. Having that experience in different classrooms helps me to help teachers to problem solve or maybe give tips or just talk things through. So I wanted you to see two videos that were, these are reading, but you definitely could kind of apply this one especially to the writing workshop as well. This is a first grade classroom, and she has just finished a mini lesson. You can see her anchor chart on the easel, and she was giving a sort of a strategies review, asking the children to look at the strategies that we've been taught. And today, she said, I want you to choose one that you're not using very much. Look through here, and which one are you not so good at, or which one are you struggling to remember to use? And so her instruction right before this started was to write down a strategy from the chart onto a sticky note. And so this video actually shows more of a transition time from the mini lesson into their independent reading time. But I wanted you to see what that looks like in Hayes in a first grade classroom. Not a professional video by any means. You'll see that it's kind of wobbly, but it's a great way to kind of show a transition that's I thought it was pretty effective. I was actually very, very impressed. Let me make sure I have my volume. I'm sorry you can't hear very good because I'm too far away. Just kind of want you to watch the movement of the kids and how they get settled. So they get their book boxes, and they seem to know right where to go and what it is that they're needing to do. I know you can't hear very good, but she's giving that voiceover that Lucy talks about. Write it on your sticky note. Stack your books. One thing I was really impressed with was how quiet and the kids moved, and you could just tell that they've been well rehearsed and trained. It was so quiet in there, if I talked to her I had to whisper because They have folders. They keep some materials in with their goals that they set. I think that she has them just write those on a sticky note and keep them in the folder. So when she goes to sit with them, she can open that folder real quick and see, you know, this is what they maybe started at the beginning of the week with, and they add to that. And she can visit with them about their goals for whatever it is that they're working on. And then immediately after they write their goal, you can see they take out their books and start reading through their books. While she goes around and meets with the students, just pulls up wherever they are. Okay, that's the end of the first one. Okay, the next one I wanted to show you is just another 2 minutes. It is a partner time. So I wanted you to get a look at what partners look like. And again, this is not a professional video, so the nose picking thing that you might see is very, very authentic.
Students in the wild.
Yeah, I rewatched this and I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to show that. But you know what? It's real. That's the way it is in first grade. You know, you get nose pickers and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I hope that doesn't go on the book. You know, and so it's real. This again is a first grade classroom, and this is during their partner read time. I liked it because it shows how they're sitting shoulder to shoulder, books in front of them, and engaged. Sorry. Kind of just notice their interaction with each other. And just play a couple more seconds. Okay, that's okay. So basically, you can kind of get an idea of how they sit shoulder to shoulder with the book in front of both of them. And one thing I noticed that was this teacher did a great job of kind of training the kids to support each other and have eyes on text, so that even if one student is reading, the other is right there supporting them, watching, following along. And that's kind of hard to get first graders to do, to focus on a text when their partner might be reading it, and be supportive, and some of that stuff is built into the lessons as well, how to be a good partner. So I think she did a great job. This was probably back in January or February, so mid-year is about the time frame for that. And I felt like they were doing a really great job at getting those kids to be engaged, and that sometimes can be kind of hard.
How is partner reading? Like the one of them chooses, or they both choose the book they
They take turns. So
And so one reads it and the other is just support, or they take turns reading? Or
It could go either way. I think in that video, one student was reading a book out of their book box, and their partner is just there to help them with word solving and support. And then when it's time to switch, the other partner will do the reading from their own book, out of their book box, and the roles just switch. But there's also times when you do seesaw where I read a page, you read a page, I read a page, you read a page, so it can go either way.
any other questions? Okay, we're going to take a minute to go through your box of writing materials. And of course, I know most of you are pretty familiar, so I'm going to keep it quick. Of course, you have your guidebook, which is the same for as reading. These are very similar. You'll see that they just kind of move in the same way that the reading does. The guidebook, again, is very rich in research and professional development. It's kind of built in there, so whenever you're having struggle with a certain aspect of workshop, I would encourage you to look in the table of contents here and see if there's a chapter on that and reread it, because I think it will really help you to sort of fine-tune any questions that you have. Then, of course, you have your 4 units, which are the spiral-bound units and the different types of writing. Narrative, information, and opinion is included pretty much across the board for everyone. Then you'll have your if-then curriculum, which is not spiral-bound. This is, sort of what we use to meet those needs of your classroom, and they are not as scripted and not as planned out for you as the units of study are, the spiral-bound lessons. So we'll talk a little bit more about those as well. You will have some mentor texts, and if you don't have them, they're probably in your classroom. But let us know if you get into your box and you're missing something, then we can help you locate it, hopefully. Also, you may have some sticky notes that will help you make anchor charts, and that's, again, similar to the reading.
What if you don't have those?
The stickies?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
They also have them on the online resources.
They do.
I noticed.
The big ones or the little ones?
Both. All I have are my books.
Okay.
I just took the package off today.
Okay.
Did you find it?
We'll have to explain once we get you one.
Does the middle school have a mentor?
Do you know, Laura, at the middle school have mentor texts?
I know we have like sticky notes, but in the middle school.
I'm not sure because it's
all of us. Would be awesome.
It's like short stories.
You have the shared guidebook and the sticky notes.
Yeah, but it would be nice.
I'm sorry if you were supposed to have them and you haven't had them for a year.
We can go and find it, but it's.
We can get you
And keep in
We're
mind
not
that
places,
the
we're not
they just have a few, like, they don't have everything. Okay.
you'll share, yes, you'll share the materials. So you should have both sets. Okay, we have some extra CDs we can get you. Okay, and the one thing that is different about the writing box from your reading boxes, you'll have an extra book called Writing Pathways, and this is something that will help you in assessing your students' writing, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. It gives you some great checklists and rubrics, student samples of work, and some learning progressions that we'll go more in depth with. But this is just a nice little extra book to help you along that pathway that students are on when they're writing and kind of shows you the next, where they're at and what's the next step for that writer. Again, you will need to register your materials through the Heinemann site. We did that with our reading materials, so maybe this morning during the break, we can work with you to help you get on to that Heinemann site and register for your writing materials. If you haven't done that, many of you have already registered for it, but we'll do that. Don't you think during break would be okay? Okay. All right. Any other materials? Do you know, Mary, how do these go up through 5th grade?
I don't.
These are your read aloud. When you do a read aloud, the read aloud prompts. Not necessarily. They could be for a writing test too. But I'm not certain if they have these with the writing. It could just be the answer showing.
Thank you.
I think they're just in the reading box. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Is that just open with the package off? And she didn't have the little ones.
Okay,
So
that's
I'm
what we're
thinking they're
wondering.
only in the
They'll need the
writing.
bigger ones for the writing boxes.
I'm thinking that.
Okay, so you need writing.
I thought they were saying they didn't take the little.
The little stickies.
I think those
Those are just for
This is
read
for
aloud.
the reading box.
Right.
Sorry to confuse you by holding those up. Stick them in there. Yeah. Well, I have a hard time keeping track of what grade levels have what materials. Okay, let's see here. Let's see what's next. Is that you?
Actually register. Okay, well, as we talked during the reading workshop, there is research behind these units of study in writing as well. And the research you'll find as we go through it is very similar to the research that supports the reading workshop. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I still think you need to know the research. So when parents are asking you why are you doing things this way, then you can tell them why. Also, it's I think comforting to myself to know that what I'm doing is good practice. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about why this writing workshop model is best for kids. Lucy is very, very adamant about children should have happy, joyful, literate lives, not just in reading, but in writing. So she wants this experience to be so positive that kids are saying, I want to write at recess. So it's not only good as far as the curriculum, it's teaching the skills, but also because it teaches kids to love what they're doing. And it's kind of scary. I know we read in the reading research that how kids grow as they go up the grades in school, they read less and less and less. That by the time they're in high school or college, they may read one book a year. That's not a requirement. And so obviously we need a literate society because we are a democracy, and we need educated people who can express themselves. People in the workforce need employees that can read and write well. And so we're going to talk just briefly about They call it the necessities or the essentials of writing instruction. And if you would turn to your chapters on that, we're just going to kind of, instead of having you read the whole section, because like I said, some of the research is the same, we're going to look at the bold headings and talk just a little bit about some of that research. Really,
In your guidebook.
it's in your guidebook. Sorry, in your writing guidebook. Common Core. Primary, it's chapter 4. Intermediate is your chapter 3. Middle school is also chapter 3. They're nearly alike, obviously. The research about what's good for kids in kindergarten is actually very similar to what's good for kids in middle school. So that's a good part of this program is that, we're not asking you to treat kids in kindergarten different, the same model will work all through the grades. So, has everybody found their pages? Okay, so we're going to start with the bold heading. Writing needs to be taught like any other basic skill with explicit instruction and ample opportunity to practice.
Mary, Stacy had a question.
Sorry.
We don't have the guidebook.
You don't have a guidebook in your kindergarten?
It's probably because that set is from Lincoln, and I needed one, and Rebecca didn't have one, so I gave her my
Okay.
one.
Caitlin and I
So
can share?
maybe you
Here.
guys.
Here, Mary, we'll pass it down.
Okay.
We can share.
Okay, who else doesn't have a guidebook?
I have
Yeah, and
my
I
fifth
have
grade one.
mine, you don't
Yeah,
have
they-
Why wouldn't the kindergarten? It's like,
Well, because it's a Lincoln title set, and I was using it to do
Oh,
my
okay,
research for
but
the presentation.
But there's this one, what about this kid? There's no guidebook. This is grade 3. This is grade 3. Who else?
we thought we went through all these boxes and everything had.
Yes.
You don't want that one. Yeah, here you go. That's the old version.
And we'll make sure that before you leave on Friday, we have one.
Here's
for everybody. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, back to the research. Writing needs to be taught like any other basic skill with explicit instruction, ample opportunity for practice, and almost every day, every K-5, and I would say K-8, child needs between 50 to 60 minutes for writing and writing instruction. And I know that doesn't work at a middle school when you only have them for 40 minutes. But that's what is ideal. And does that sound like research we had in reading? That they need ample instruction, kids need time to practice, and an hour a day is what we want them to do. What has happened in the past, and when it says explicit instruction, that sometimes teachers, because they weren't really comfortable with teaching writing, didn't really know the writing process, they would say, well, I just kind of weave it in wherever it comes up. Like maybe if we are studying lions, we might have them write a report on lions, but nobody explicitly taught them how to do that. And so it was like that set aside time for writing got watered down and taken away. It's like when you go to school, everybody knows that you are going to get math. Okay, nobody has a choice about whether they teach with math. But when it came to writing, depending on what teacher you had, if your teacher liked to teach writing, you might get a lot of writing. If your teacher was uncomfortable about writing, you might not have gotten any writing. And so we know that kids need writing taught like any other subject. It needs to be explicitly taught. Yes, it can be interwoven through other curriculum areas, but there is a process to teach, and we need to teach that to children. Okay? Any questions about that? Any arguments about that? I mean,
Does any of the writing include like handwriting practice?
No.
Does third grade do cursive?
that's a whole nother
Okay.
outside
Kinda
of
like
the
this-
workshop
kinda like
time.
this
It
spelling
is,
and phonics.
yeah, it's something that our ELA SAC committee is going to have to talk about. Because yes, we've heard that from teachers, especially K-1 teachers. You know, they still need letter formation, or do we need cursive? That's a big debate. But in the workshop, you're not going to get letter formation, and that, no, it is on the craft of writing. Okay. Children need to be immersed in listening. Whoops, I guess I skipped one. Children deserve to write for real, to write the kinds of texts that they see in the real world. Nonfiction chapter books, persuasive letters, stories, lab reports, reviews, poems, and to write for an audience of readers, not just the teacher's red pen. Okay? I truthfully feel that one of the reasons why the kids love to write in this program is they get to share their writing. They get to share it with their classmates. I know in my building, they get to share it with their parents through Seesaw. They're not just writing for a grade. They're writing for a purpose and an audience. And, you know, when you get out of school, that's what you have to do. You have to know your audience, and you have to write. And you have all kinds of formats that you need to write in. And so we have to let children be able to do that while they're in school. And, you know, we're not just going to write pieces or assignments, okay? They're going to make real documents. I know, like in second grade, they write lab reports. And, the kids love it because they get to do the experiment, and then they get to write up a lab report. And they go, second graders, wow. But they do. They have so much fun with that unit. And so I think, again, it goes with our research about, choice with readers. They should have the choice of books that they write. In writing, the choice is, the topic, who they're writing for. Not necessarily the genre. Sometimes the genre is dictated as far as everybody in the class right now is going to be working on essays, okay, or we're all going to be working on lab reports, but there is a choice in their topic and who it is that they're going to be writing for. I don't know how anybody could argue against that. If we are writing, whether it's just an email or, we like to have the choice of how we're going to put that together and who our audience is. Children need to be immersed in a listening and this is just primary, but there is a component that's very similar in intermediate and middle school, that children need to be immersed in a listening, storytelling culture where our voices are heard and valued. Children become better writing partners and better writers if they are encouraged to contribute their stories, opinions, thoughts, and ideas to a community of writers. Basically, research has been done that we don't talk to kids in homes. Parents don't really talk to kids as much as they used to. Most of the storytelling that children would sit at the table and while their parents were playing cards, and they would listen, the kids would be listening to the stories that the parents were talking about while they were playing cards, or the TV is on now, the kids' face is in a computer, and they don't interact and they don't hear that the storytelling and the just the deep conversations that they had access to before. And so we need to make our classroom places where they hear stories, not only read but told. And kids want to tell their stories. You know they do. They're like, I want to tell my story, you know. And some teachers have incorporated at the beginning of their day a storytelling kind of time, differing from show and tell, but still a place where kids can be the storytellers and they can hear other people tell the stories. And you also know that in Lucy's reading lessons, she often begins in the connection with a story of just her experience. Kids need to know that to be a writer, you draw from your life and your experiences. And so, you know, the more you can tell kids in your classroom about yourself and your experiences and how, you know, that can go into your writing, that just will increase them thinking about, oh, I could write about this that happened to me. And so we want to be aware that we want to be sure to do read alouds and to share mentor text and to let kids experience that language, because oral language precedes written language. And so you can't expect a child to write at a level that's higher than that which they can speak. And so we need to make sure that we're giving them lots of opportunities. I'm not telling you to just have everybody every day can just talk all the time, but you know, we do need to give them a chance, and we need to value them. Kids know when you are really listening, you know, not just We have the opportunity when we sit with our reading recovery students one-on-one to hear about their days and what happened that night, and we get to know those students so well, and you know, we get to give them a chance to just communicate with us, and I think we get some great stories because of it, and we can really get a feel for our kids that sometimes, you know, when you have 25 kids in a classroom, I understand that's a little harder to do, but it's definitely valuable if you can do it. Any questions about that? I would say, you know, when you have time, this research is great for you to go back and read, because she gives a lot of good analogies in there, but because we did the reading research, I didn't want to spend a lot of time making you reread stuff that you probably are familiar with because of the reading research. Okay, then I'm on children deserve to be explicitly taught how to write. Instruction matters, and this includes not just instruction in spelling and conventions, but also in the qualities and strategies of good writing. And we've had teachers who have said, I have never felt like a very good teacher of writing. I didn't really know how to teach writing. And so most of the instruction was editing. The kids would write, the teacher would get out their pen, they would edit mostly spelling and conventions, maybe a little bit of language usage, but kids can get any feedback about how to actually construct a good piece of writing. And you don't, if we don't instruct kids, they can't do it. I mean, there are some people who I think if you're a voracious reader, because you've seen a lot of books and read a lot of, that you mimic that in your writing. But to really be good writers, we need to know about the craft of writing and how to improve our writing. And that isn't just how to spell check, which we know kids are not going to have to probably do anyway, because they're going to be producing in a program that will do that for them. But they need to know how to get a lead, what makes a good conclusion,
what are good transitions? How do I come up with an idea? Those are skills and strategies we need to teach kids. And it's something that I think many teachers in the past haven't felt comfortable doing, because they've not been taught how to do it either. So again, these boxes are great professional development. Teachers have told us that, that they really feel good about their writing instruction for the first time. And these are not beginning teachers. These are teachers who've been teaching 15 years. And now they feel like they have the materials that really support good writing instruction. Then children deserve the opportunity and instruction necessary for them to cycle through the writing process, rehearsing, drafting, revising, editing, publishing, okay? That often when we give assignments, we don't talk about the whole process, and that we don't break it down. It's just, write for this purpose and for this assignment, and we don't really talk about, okay, well, first we're going to rehearse what it is. How can we do that? How can we come up with the ideas? And we're going to flash draft. We're going to learn how to write long and strong. We're going to learn to write volumes. And then we're going to revise it. How can we make our writing better? Do we need to delete some things? Do we need to elaborate in other places? Is our word choice strong? And then, of course, the editing is probably the most comfortable for most people. But we need to teach kids how to edit their own work or peer edit. And then finally, the publishing piece. Now, will every thing that children do in the writing workshop get published or get to that quality? Probably not, but a few pieces will. But we want kids to be able to know that these are the steps in the writing process. This is what real writers do. This is what authors do, and you can do it too. Okay? And then, lastly, children need clear goals and frequent feedback. They need to hear the ways their writing is getting better and to know what their next steps might be. When we talk in the Reading Pathways book, we will talk to you about learning progressions, and it will lay out for you and for students that you can look like in the elaboration of a child's writing. This is where they are, and here's the notch up where we can take them next. And it's progressive, and we're going to talk to kids about how can you improve that writing. We're going to give them feedback, not just a grade at the top of the paper or words circled in red. As the process is going along, you are going to be telling them, this is how you can improve your writing. And the kids are going to have the opportunity to hear what they can do, how they can grow. So, are there any questions about that research? I mean, I think to me, it makes common sense if you think about what good teaching is. There's nothing earth-shaking in there, probably stuff that you knew intuitively, but sometimes it's nice to hear that what it is that you're doing. Like Laura said at one time, when you hear the research and it affirms what you've been doing, it makes you feel good. Okay, but we also need to be able to educate parents when it comes to conference time, or if they're not seeing essays come home with a letter grade, or they have to explain to them what is the research behind it and why we're doing it. So again, this is a good section for you to read on your own, but didn't want to spend tons of time on that. So if you have any questions or you want to go back and reread that at a later date, probably would be a good idea. So now I'm going to go back to the previous slide. And we are going to actually split into groups because this these chapters are quite a bit different. The primary people, you're going to be reading chapter 3, the pathway along which young readers progress. It kind of talks about the developmental piece of writing. Intermediate, you're going to be reading a chapter on the writing process. And middle school, you also have a chapter on the writing process. So what I would like you to do is sit, trying to think, maybe you could, yes, sit by groups, like the primary, let's have the primary group here, the intermediate group over there, and the middle school over there. And I want you to read your chapter. I think they're both about 8 pages. And then what I want us to do is I want the primary teachers to educate the intermediate and the middle school teachers about the development of writing, so what you've read in this, and then I want the middle school and intermediate teachers to kind of educate primary about the writing process, and then we'll have a discussion. So while you're reading, you might want to underline or highlight or jot a note about things that you think are important about in your chapter that you want to share with the other grades, the other grade levels. I will say, right for the intermediate and the middle school people, you can skip to page, well, I don't know if it's the same in middle school because I don't have a middle school manual, but start reading where it says the distinctive characteristics of elementary students' writing process. There's a few pages at the beginning that basically kind of talk about the history of the writing process. I don't know that that's something that you necessarily have to read. So you would read from there to the end of the chapter. I think that we will read, and when you're done reading, you can take a little break, and then we'll regroup after our break, and we'll do a little teaching share out. So. Okay, great job. I think we'll start with the primary folks. So if you guys want to go where you can sit, where you can see, and then we'll let the intermediate. I wrote intermediate. You guys have someone. You all can do it if you can join after. There's one person who wants to. Well, there's only two. So. You guys might want to just stand up there for her support.
Julie, I think you'd be great. Can stand
So for younger elementary, they'll be coming into the classroom knowing different things, and they'll be at different levels. Some will know how to write some ABCs, some will know sounds, some will just be making marks. So you're going to have to know how to get them to progress. And so if they're just making squiggles, you could ask them to label their drawing, verbally, say, what is this? Tell me about your picture. Try to get them to connect what you drew means something or says something. Try to get them to make words to go with it and that it conveys some type of meaning. And that will help them progress to maybe an actual drawing and then actual letters and words. Some will be not spelling correctly, but phonetically, they might just have for bike, BK, not miss the vowels. So try not to correct them, try to decipher before you ask too many questions of them. Some will be able to write a sentence that may not be spelled correctly. If they're at that point, then we might ask for more detail. If they have trouble writing, just ask them, what's your picture about? When they usually start talking, you could say, oh, write that down, there's your story. Try to give them the creative, don't give them too many ideas, don't help them too much. Yeah. That's right. The not prompting them too much, giving wait time, and they had eye gaze in there was very important. So if they're not wanting to write, keep your eyes on the paper, like, this is where I want you to go. Or if you want them to practice a certain skill, they said to put your eye gaze on the skill chart, anchor chart. So it's probably very hard for us, a little bit agonizing, I know this from my school, but I have learned if I give them that wait time, they will usually do it. So they might just make squiggles because they're angry. They might make squiggles because they think you won't waste your time on them. But usually they will add to it. So what else do they have?
Approximations, don't try to correct.
Yeah, don't correct too much. We don't want to discourage them or make them feel like they're not doing a good job. So the spelling will come as we go. And then challenge them to do more. Have a little bit of a high expectation. We don't want them to melt down, but we want them to progress. So be a good coach. Any questions? Guys, anybody else want to add anything to?
We talked about, when they make the drawing, you can encourage them to add more details by labeling what's their drawing. And then taking those labels to use as a framework, okay, then you can write a sentence about that to add more volume of language to what they're writing.
Yeah. If they're afraid of writing or struggle writing, their drawing can help them more.
Thank you. There are just a few things that I want to add to that and that I thought really jumped out at me. And there was a quote out of there that low expectations are toxic. Because if you have a low expectation, guess where your students are going to perform. And that's not just true about writing, that's just true about performance. So when it says, if they can write one sentence, they can write two. If they can write 3 or 4 sentences, they can write a page. If they can write a page, they can write several pages. So you're always pushing them a notch up. What's the next thing they can do with just a little bit of scaffolding, with a little bit of help? What can they do next? And you'll do that during your conferring piece. So I think also with beginning writers, K2, they spend a lot of time in the pre-writing stages, the coming up with the idea, what am I going to write about, assigning the meaning to what they're doing, labeling. That is something that you, as they get older, the intermediate grade teachers will notice a difference in, I think, is that kids will know where to get ideas to write about, because that's a really strong push down in K2, is to get the kids to think about their lives and where their stories can come from, and that you write about topics that you know a lot about. And so, it kind of goes along with the writing process in that pre-writing stage. How do you get those, and how do I organize those thoughts? How am I going to put that on paper? And so I think that sometimes when we look at beginning writers, all we can look at is the spelling
and the lack of conventions, but really the meat is very important, you know, that the fact that they can assign, that they know that they can convey what they want you to know on paper. And so we need to just accept those approximations. They'll come, you'll be instructing them in phonics and phonemic awareness. They'll get, as they learn more about the alphabet and the letter sounds, it'll show up in their writing. So just don't get caught up in just, when you're looking at a beginning writer, K2, don't just worry about the spelling, because really we want them to see themselves as writers, and to do that we have to encourage them to put their ideas on paper in the best way they can. And if it's just drawing a picture and adding more detail to the picture, or drawing a picture and adding labels, or maybe they can put a few letter sounds on the page. But whatever they can do, take them where they are, which is an important that you know what your kids are, and try to notch them to the next notch up. So that's the only thing that I would add there. Intermediate and middle school, would you like to take the stage?
Our section kind of went over to group it, well, started with like the prerequisites of the writer's workshop, how to set it up, and then it got into the process. And so some of the prereqs that we talked about, first of all, with having elementary and middle, we talked about how writer's workshop has been implemented. It will be nice to start the school year off. Of course, you know, kids will be at different levels, but everyone will hopefully, most kids will have an idea of what the workshop entails and what it looks like. And so building stamina and the pacing, hopefully, you know, we'll have a better baseline to start with this year. Let's see, some different ideas, and I know in the curriculum it talks about giving them choice for the different writing outlets. We talked about having booklets for ideas. It talked about like a great garage sale where you can just continuously add ideas into the booklets. Flexibility, if they want to start a story in their writer's notebook, that's awesome, but some genres, it might be better for them to staple loose leaf paper together. So kind of to teach them that it doesn't always fit one mold. And having a variety, booklets with, you know, small lines, larger lines. They talked about like from 2nd to 3rd grade, you're going from where they were drawing pictures to probably not as much focus on pictures, but maybe starting each page with like a header. So just kind of that gradual progression. And then we got into the writer's process. The rehearsal, the pre-write, talked about like small moments, the seed of the watermelon instead of the entire watermelon, choosing one specific topic. I know throughout elementary and I'm sure middle school too, that's important, not just day at grandma's, but that one time when you went down the slide or something very specific. Drafting, we all kind of agreed this is interesting. They talked about fast and furious or long and strong, where we used to think the draft, you know, took the longest. Not necessarily. They talked about the importance of getting all your ideas down quickly. And then when you got to the next steps, there was actually work to be done, where sometimes the kids are spending so much time on the draft, you know, using the dictionary and the thesaurus, that when they get to revision, that's like the worst part, because they don't even want to think about making it better. And so that draft, really focusing on, you can, you know, just, they talked about like an analogy of fishing, like just hook one little one idea and go with it. It's not like you have to share this out with everyone. This is kind of for you. Playing the movie in your mind. We talked about some students kind of can see the picture in their head first,
and then write it down. Some of us have to go straight to the paper. Then in the middle school curriculum, they talk more about the digital media. So just, I think, as teachers too, understanding it's going to look different for everyone and being okay with that. I think sometimes we have this vision of how it's going to go, but some won't start writing right away, but they're still processing through the information. And then just the steps, revision. If they're writing that draft quickly, then hopefully in revision, talked about kind of the meat of it and knowing that that's where they're changing the content of the story. That's even where they might, your mini lesson might be, okay, now that you have this, choose one tiny moment within that story, then you're gonna pull that out and create an actual story based on just that moment. And I think with the mini lessons, that will help us too. Elaborating, eliminating, they talked about, you can cut certain pieces of paper and glue them as beginnings, endings, middle. So it will be messy, but good. And then the editing is kind of what they're more familiar with, the punctuation, spelling conventions. And it talked about after editing, being able to confer with the teacher before you're going on to publishing. And they made a note of, as the teacher, you might hone in to one specific thing that you want to teach them. You're not, marking all over their paper. You might, that's the part where you could really differentiate. They talked about having a mentor text with quotations, and if the student was quoting something, you could teach them that one skill, and then they take that to their published work. And then we kind of finished up talking about publishing as, it's their final piece, but they're kids, so we don't expect every word to be correct or every punctuation mark. We want it to be authentic in their work. And you had mentioned, explaining that to parents. Sometimes that's a big thing. They see that this is their final piece and that it's yes, it's not a college essay. So we just, we kind of just wrapped up the writing process. Slap through.
And just to help you understand, kids K-5 go through this writing process. The instruction in the writing process starts in kindergarten. So by the time kids have been in the workshop for a while, hopefully, that they really have a handle on the actual writing process. Does it look different at kindergarten? Of course it does, but we still want them to draft long and strong and build that stamina. And that's what we have found that kids lack right now, is the stamina to just really stick with it. And I was on a blog spot last night, and there was a guy, I would play the video for you, but he's a terrible singer, and it was kind of hard to listen to in that way. But he took the words to the Frozen song, Let It Flow, or Let It Go, and he made it Let It Flow, Let It Flow, and he was singing it to his middle schoolers, like, just get your ideas down on paper, don't be, just be, free to write long and strong and fast and furious, and don't worry what the teacher's going to say about it. Don't worry what the grade is going to be. Just get your ideas down there on the paper, and then we'll go to the revising part. And they start revising already in first grade, where they cut the paper apart, and if they want to change things around, they glue it together. And it's not a bunch of erasing and rewriting, because we know kids hate to rewrite something they've written the first time. There's lots of ways to organize that revising part of it, and to hone in on a detail, or fix this part of your story. We're not going to have you fix the entire thing, but today we're going to work on fixing this part and making it a little bit better. The other thing that I wanted to really talk about is the use of mentor texts in writing and reading, and giving kids quality literature that author is using a specific technique and pointing that out, and then the kids then can take that on themselves. And so there's a lot of use of mentor texts, and I think that's something that I would have really benefited from when I was learning how to write. I remember having a class at Fort Hays, and we were studying authors like Willa Cather, and that was probably the first time I thought about the authors really crafted the conscious decisions that you make when you put together a text that you're trying to you have to decide on what idea do I want to get across and what's the best structure for that, and so I think it's a wonderful skill and strategies that we're going to be teaching these kids, that when you will, I just think we'll be amazed at the writing that we'll see that come from our kids. And on that note, I'm going to just pass out a few samples, because again, there's samples in the book, and she even says, sometimes it's easy to just say, oh, these are gifted kids, that our kids can't write like that. And I'm sorry that if get those out and get these out. I'm sorry that I don't have any intermediate grades, because I have access mostly to primary. But just to see even what for kindergarten and first grade students are capable of doing when given the opportunity to write.
Students from Hayes.
Yeah, these are students from Hayes, and we'll start with. I want you to look at this one first. This is someone who is going into first grade. Okay, so that she's coming out of kindergarten writing this. This is a how-to. They do a lot of how-to books in kindergarten. How to make a pillowcase. Step 1, get fabric. Step 2, sew it together. Step 3, iron it. Step 4, get a pillowcase. Congratulations, you have made a pillowcase. The end. But for her to think sequentially and to not be afraid to tackle that word congratulations. I mean, something that we've heard teachers say that have been veterans. They said, we would have never expected our kids to do this. And that's because we were giving them the opportunity to do this. So the next one I want you to look at is this one. I made my husband read this to see if he could do it, and he did a pretty good job with it. This is a second grader, and they've been talking about persuasive letters. And so, and I can hear this, I know this little girl, I can hear her voice, I can see her writing this. It's just, dear Mrs. Kyle, I was pondering that we can get a class pet, because and it should be baby, and she has a BD thing, our baby gerbils are ready for adventure. They had enough time cuddling with their mom, Allie's gerbil, that's her sister. With that, please share with Kepper. Please share with Kepper. And to getting a class pet, please share with the class. Tell us how many you want, because we have a lot. In conclusion, we should get a class pet. Sincerely, yours truly, Julianne. But the voice in that, and the persuasion in that, and we've had these gerbils long enough. They're ready to go. They're ready for adventure. And then this is a narrative piece. And
So,
These are Savannah's girls, the
two of them,
kindergarten, and they are adorable, and their writing is amazing.
Yes.
They take after their mom.
No, just really close in age. One will be in second grade, one will be in first.
And this is a narrative piece. It is a wonderful day, said Bunny. I know I will borrow some chocolate from the Easter Bunny. Is the Easter Bunny at Rabbit Falls? No, he is at Easterland. There's the Easter Bunny's chocolate. I will eat the badonkadonk. Ooh, what? Or, what are you doing? Said the Easter Bunny. Just eat it. I'm not looking, said the Easter Bunny. Chomp, chomp, chomp.
I love the title, Bunny Gets Busted.
I like the part where it says, okay, I'm not looking, just eat it.
It's funny because I saw the time, I'm like, I've heard this before. Because you read it.
Yes. So again, just examples of what kids can do if we give them the opportunity and the voice, and how fun is this for parents to read, you know, and I just think we have for too long not given kids the time they needed to develop as writers, and now we have this opportunity, and it's supported by an administration, and I just think we're going to just, the sky's the limit.
And the choice.
And the
You know,
choice.
We for so long have sort of dictated what we want the kids to write about this topic. You know, we're going to write about Christmas, or we're going to write about, you know,
We've given
animals or whatever. And so when they have a choice, you find they're so much more creative and so much more invested when they have a stake in what they're writing about, because it's their choice. It's something they feel confident with and they feel good about and you know about. So you just get better writing when they can decide, you know, what they want to write about.
They're natural storytellers. I mean, how many times do we get stopped and go, listen to the story they're trying to, you know? And now we're not holding them back by, that's not how you spell with. That's not how you, you know, they can get their ideas down and you just get that quantity.
And it's not like these, I mean, these are probably drafts. They're not, you know, it's not that we're not going to teach kids things along the way of how to improve those pieces. But, boy, I think the hardest part a writer has is the idea piece and getting that, getting their ideas down on paper and the freedom to feel, to write. And we're not giving a story prompt like one scary-eyed eye, and then they're really locked into what they have to write about. And so we are just, we may tell them the genre, but the topic is their choice, and you write about what you know. And so when they are writing about animals, and they love penguins, they're going to research penguins, and they're going to write about penguins. And this person might love bats, and they're going to read about bats. And you know, there's just that investment and that engagement, and it comes out in the writing.
One thing that I would be interested to see is, I feel like the older students, when you talk about the drafting process, it's frustrating when you can't explain to them. It doesn't have to be perfect, just right. But with Emma, I mean, it's not, she loves to do it, and
Yes.
she comes home every night and just writes and writes and writes. So I'm wondering if, you know, not bogging them down with,
Right.
Because I don't think there's a word that's spelled correctly. You know,
Right.
not, yeah, but, you know, somewhere along the way, our older writers, you know, like, I know Kay, oh, Emma's writing is her strength, and I look at this and I go, oh, really? Because there's, you know, but not stifling their idea.
Well, I think we've inadvertently taught kids that unless it's perfect, the ideas aren't
Right,
perfect.
exactly.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
this says your ideas are more important than having it perfect. Whereas before we, you know, stopped them in the middle and they come to your desk, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? That if they're just giving it their best shot. My oldest is 11, and I remember trying to read something she wrote, and it had this word in it, DRAF. And I read this whole story and I could not figure out what that was. And finally I asked her, I was like, what is that word? And she says, giraffe. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. But she had written this whole thing and I got stuck because I couldn't figure out that word. But it was this beautiful story she'd written and the content was beautiful. And we didn't even stifle that by saying, hold on, stop, cross this out, change this, until all ideas were out.
Right. And I think, if you're writing with an audience in mind and not writing for a grade, that shift, can happen. And I think kids growing up in this workshop will know that, you write for an audience, you write about what you know, you are a writer, leading a writerly life. I've seen first graders with notebooks around their necks because the teachers are trying to get them to say, oh, there's an idea, I'm going to write it in my notebook. Maybe it's second grader, and just getting kids to live in a way that they see themselves as writers. So.
I was thinking the same thing that Savannah said, that our writing is so personal. It's a part of us, and it's just like art. And it seems like kids think they're really good writers, and they're good at art when they're little, and the older they get. I'm not good at art anymore. I'm not a good writer anymore. And I think we just have to be really careful about looking at their writing personally with them and not thinking about the thinking about the content and not marking it up and it's wrong, and giving them the idea that it's wrong. Because we have to just remember it is so personal. And talking about a writerly life, this reminds me of a conversation that I had with Joanne. She said, Joanne is just a hilarious person. We know her stories. She's just had the funniest things happen to her. And I said, Joanne, you have the funniest things happen to you. She said, so do you. We all do. We all have the funny things that happen to us, but I live my life as a writer and I think about who I'm going to tell that story to. That really changed me, and I thought about that because I grew up in a home where we tell stories. And when something happens to me, I think, when I go home for Easter, I'm going to tell my family the story. And it changes you when you think like that. You think, oh, this silly little thing happened and I got out of my car and my notepads fell out in the pedal, is what Mary said yesterday. And when she thinks, that could be written into a story. Like Joanne was master teacher in the parade and her husband bought her, she said, go get me some candy to throw in the parade. And he got her big size candy. She just laughed and laughed and she had to go, watch out! She threw anything off. And she said, Laura, you have those funny things happen to you too, but you just need to think about it like you're a writer and you're going to write a story about that. Ever since she told me that, it really changed my life. It is true. You have these silly little funny things that happen in your days, all of us do. You think about you're going to tell that story to someone, or you could write about that. It's true. It
Or
really
the opposite,
is.
when something's really emotional for you and, it really hits you in your heart and you think, I will talk about it with my husband, but, I could easily put it down on paper and, that would be, it would, I think, make me grow as a person. And then, you have those things to refer to and it just shapes the way you live your life, so. And we were talking earlier this morning, and I said, I have 3 daughters, and you think you raise them all the same, but, each one, I was telling you how Erin got caught in the rain, and, she sent me a Snapchat, and I was thinking my older daughter, she would have called me on the phone crying. Oh my God, my day is ruined! She would have been in the bathroom under the hand dryer, And my middle daughter, she would have been mad. She would have called me and she would have said, Mom, you cannot believe what happened. I spent 2 hours on my hair and I got out in the rain, And then I had my youngest daughter who just went out there, stood in the middle of the nursing station, instead of Snapchat, and that's just a little blip in her. But the way they process things and think about, think how different their writing would be because of the way they experience life.
And Mary, you could write that into a great
I could,
yeah. He's so funny.
So I could say, Mom, you tell people too much about us.
I was thinking one more thing, thinking about my dad and how he would write a story. I was driving down the driveway this morning, turned my blinker on to turn right, saw something out the corner of my eye. It was a dog. It's a little brown dog with black feet, and that's how it goes. And I finally got around the corner and thought, where's that dog going? That's how it's writing. Every detail. And some kids write like that too.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. I think we'll go ahead. Where's our little going? Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. And the last chapter that poor Mary had a hard chapter. I mean, that was meaty, wasn't it? There was a lot of meat to that. It was tough. This chapter will give you a break on that. It's kind of a little more light, a little more fun. This chapter is about provisioning the writing workshop in your classroom. So it's really in two sections. The material, well, first of all, how you set your room up, how the kids need to be seated. And then the second half of the chapter is what materials you need in your classroom. So we will read it in two parts. I think it's like 7 pages for the chapter. We'll read it in 2 parts. So look at chapter 5, Provisioning a Writing Workshop. Your page is right up here. And all of your books are very different. The primary, intermediate, and middle are really different. So I know there's a different length on some of them than others. Read the first half of the chapter until you get to materials. Okay, you read the beginning to materials. And then once we have that done, we will do what we did last time. We'll have primary here. Middle, if you want to stay there, that was middle school area. Oh, we had intermediate together. We need those separate. So we'll have primary, middle school, and intermediate. Intermediate would be 3-5 together. After you read that section to materials, and then we'll discuss it there, and then we'll share out from there. Okay? Go ahead and read up to materials. So primary, tell us about the materials you need in your classroom.
Well, this is what we talked about, like all the pens and pencils and markers, and like for the younger grades, maybe have bigger markers. So if you see, like this one really emphasizes the importance of the kind of paper that you have.
Absolutely.
So that way they can build their stamina. So like maybe like the first one they can have like a big area for them to draw on and just like 6 lines to write on. And then maybe say you've graduated, here's 15 lines, it's a little or so they just bumping up.
Absolutely. Lucy says it is hard to emphasize enough that the kind of paper you give to your children absolutely affects writing they do. Do not channel K2 children to write in spiral notebooks all year long. And I think that was consistent across everyone. Don't have them write in spiral notebooks because it's a feeling of an assignment and it's kind of a journal feel. And that was also consistent across all of them, that writing in a journal is so much different than the writing workshop. The journal is it's not a certain genre, it's not for a certain intended audience, it's not edited, fixed up, so that is totally different. Journal writing is just, not that it's a bad thing, but that not the writing that you do in the workshop, the journaling. Okay, great point. And as Becca said about the paper, Amy and I were just talking about that. All of the paper sources that you need are in your online resources. All of that paper is there. So you don't need to create your own or go find others, or everything you need is there in the online resources. Okay, what else, primary?
I took that to mean even different sizes and maybe some stapled up as booklets or
Yes.
just plain paper because that encourages more drawing.
Yes.
Creativity.
Yes, and she said physical dimensions matter in constructing those things. They're making a physical artifact of a book, a letter, a recipe, a poem, And that's a big deal to those little kids, to make those artifacts that they can hold. So that's all a really big deal. And then what did she suggest kindergartners needed to write with? Remember? Bigger marker. And first graders, a thinner marker. And second graders, what is that? With a pen. And somewhere I don't remember, it might be middle or intermediate, she says she does not recommend pencils. Okay, sorry, I should have let you guys say that.
Don't recommend erasers.
And she doesn't recommend erasers, right? And why is that?
So they won't erase it, you can't see what they're editing.
Absolutely, you want to be able to see the editing that's happening. Absolutely. Okay. What else? Primary, anything else?
We encourage to have writing
Writing folders, yes, like a 2-pocket writing folder with an in progress and a done, right?
The stickers, so like one side, like the little sticky dots had like a red, so this is done, this is finished, and the other side had green, so go and so forth.
Yep, excellent. So does K2 have a writer's notebook? Think about that. No, she says it starts at 3rd grade. Yep, it starts at 3rd grade, the writer's notebook. Okay. Anything else from primary? If there's
Private pencils or community recommends using. Models to use and stuff.
she leaves that up to you, right? To decide if you're going to have community pins or markers, or she mentioned somewhere in there it's kind of a hassle when kids are fighting over, that's my pen, you know.
Just the thing about the awareness with the sharp pencils, just again, not to waste time.
Exactly. No wasting time. Remember that during the workshop. Nobody's walking over to sharpen a pencil. You just have containers of sharpened pencils and unsharpened. You just walk over and get a different one.
And just from background, my background, I think the pencils all the same, because even if one is red and one is green, that causes controversy. So get the yellow number 2 pencils and sharpen them up and let it be.
Yes. And have your charts easy to see, your anchor charts up there, easy to access, easy to refer to. Okay, middle school, what materials do you need?
Right.
Okay. And what does she suggest your kids need to write with?
Either she hasn't or none of us picked them up.
She says devices, laptops, you can do it digital.
There's technology.
Right.
Like
You can decide if you want a traditional writer's notebook, or are they doing it on their iPads and saving it?
Right. And she mentioned Evernote was good for keeping track of drafts, and I don't know much about Evernote, but maybe you guys do. Keeping track of drafts and final copies, and she says it's really important to not replace a draft with a new. Be sure you keep the drafts, you see their progress.
We've been using Notability, but I like Evernote in that you can access it from another device. You can have 2 devices for the free account, and if you want more devices, you have to pay. But so if they left their iPad at school or at home or vice versa, they can just log into their account on another device, and there's all of their stuff, unlike Notability. So Evernote has a lot of great features.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know much about it, but that's what she suggests, so that really makes sense.
You know, the other thing with your digital device is there's a microphone you can talk into it for those kids that can't write or, you know, you're differentiating.
Absolutely, that's true.
Not everybody would you want to say, okay, you can go ahead and record your voice, but when you have stragglers with the writing, special ed maybe, you know, I don't know.
We had a first grader that we adapted that because it was struggled with a lot of fine motor skills, and so typing or writing was really difficult. And rather than have him tell somebody, have somebody write it for him, he just used the microphone.
it up to you, doesn't she?
Although she does make a strong case for paper.
Right, to be able to lay it out, you mean, and see their
Well,
progress?
just because technology can go down,
Exactly, yes.
not everyone has
Right.
internet.
Very true.
So, but everybody has paper.
Very true. Yep, she says it is pretty easy to start a writing program. You don't
Oh, that's
need very
true.
much.
I take that. Not everyone has paper.
Okay, she says the final fifth of your writer's notebook should be for goals, plans, strategies, and checklists. That was interesting. She talks about making it a capital offense if somebody forgets the notebook. That was a funny part to read. Making a really big deal about that so they don't forget again. It's the same as in the reading. We already talked about that. Let's see here. Always dating what they work on, so you can see their progress. She talked about the first half of the unit, they're usually writing in their notebooks, and the second half drafting on paper. She talked about you could use Word or Google Docs, and a comment function to annotate on the side. I'm sure you guys know more about that than I do. It's interesting that she points those out, Word or Google Docs. The charts can be one-day charts or anchor charts, which are up for an entire unit, or maybe for the year, I guess, if you had room. She says access to technology helps with engagement and modifications, like Alyssa said over there. So sometimes it might be really enticing to some kids to write on an iPad, or that some kids might not want to. She kind of just acts like make it their choice or your choice as a teacher. And having exemplar text also for kids to look at. Now that was interesting when I read about dictionaries, because for you guys, what did she say about dictionaries for you guys, for intermediate grades? Did she say to have them? She said have them. And for you guys, she said don't have them. She said it's not helpful when kids don't know how to spell a word to be able to, so that was interesting. Maybe because there's right, use their device that's true.
And our check suggested using word walls, so you're kind of creating your own dictionary on the wall, whereas a dictionary would be full of so many words, try to have to find the one that a word wall would be useful for frequently used words.
And if you don't have room in your room for a word wall, you can have a tiny word wall on paper that can go into their folders. That type of a word wall. You can be a poor speller and a good writer. That's important. We were kind of talking about that earlier. Your spelling, your ability to spell doesn't really have any impact on the type of writer you are. Spelling doesn't affect the content.
I think that's another shift, because it used to be that writing was so focused on spelling and the conventions that that's what made you a good writer, and then we might talk a little bit about ideas or voice, but we didn't spend
And that goes back to killing the love of writing. Well, you spelled that wrong, and that's spelled wrong, and you need a period here, and where's your exclamation mark? That goes back to that. So it's all about the content of the ideas. Okay, intermediate. I know I said some other things. What do you have to add to that?
We were just kind of discussing what the notebook, what she says, don't do a spiral, but then at the same time she has folders, so you're going to put some things in folders, so some of it's loose leaf and some of it's in a composition book. We're trying to organize that in our group, would a reading binder be okay?
Okay, so the writing notebook is where they will try to practice, I want to say a beginning, but what's the word? A lead, thank you. To practice a lead or something like that. You're practicing. It's kind of a place for to jot ideas and things like that. That's the writer's notebook. The writing that they do, like I just said, in the unit, about the first half of the unit, they might be trying some strategies in a writer's notebook. But when they start writing their paper, their draft, those are in loose papers, and those go into maybe a 2 pocket notebook. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, because we kind of all gathered
Yeah, we're all.
that they did their drafting in their writing notebook, but maybe that was.
And you can start a draft in a writer's notebook, and
We
then,
had it divide, like, I know they say the last part is goals. Can we have also, I've had before, like, almost a mini lesson, like if you made a copy of the anchor chart, could they glue that in part of their notebook, or is that not?
you know, there are so many different ways to do a writer's notebook, and I think that part would be up to you. Because like our ELA SAC is reading Mechanically Inclined, we're doing a little book study on that, and he talks about in there a way to set up a writer's notebook, and he has different kinds of sections, like a free writing section, and cool words section, like adjectives or something, and cool verbs to use, and he has all these different kinds of sections. So as you read, different authors can tell you many different ways to set up a writer's notebook, and I think that would be up to you too. Are you wanting to put little clips for me?
I've seen teachers shrink down an anchor chart and put it in there.
We uploaded ours to Canvas.
Yeah, so that they have access to that when they're writing somewhere other than your classroom.
That's a great idea too.
Would that be something we could put on Seesaw, that those kids and the parents can see us?
Yes, absolutely. Anything, any tools you can put at their fingertips, is wonderful.
Ours also said to use pens and not pencils to discourage them from stopping and erasing, just keep going.
And you realize when they edit, they might be cutting a paper apart and adding another paper in, or
Sometimes
putting
they
a
make
sticky
flaps,
note, making
where they
flaps.
rewrite it and tape it, just one piece of tape. So you have the original underneath with the new one on top. Just kind of not taking apart the whole piece of writing, but make a flap to fix that part. It just makes it more, not so laborious for the kids to have to revise.
And you get a glimpse as a teacher, what was there initially, and how did they revise it. It also said about only writing on one side of the paper, so you could scissor it.
Yes, good point.
And or having them skip every other line, so that they wanted to add something or.
Even in the writer's notebooks, ours talked about skipping lines as a way to differentiate, so that if you have some kids, you could say everybody needs to write a page, but for some of those kids, it'll be half as much because they'll be skipping lines, whereas others will be writing on every line.
I don't know that would matter one way or the other. You know, it's that we found that kids would do more revising of those lines in there, extra lines in there.
But the reason you don't do the writing in the writer's notebook is just for that reason you might need to cut, paste, and.
That's what I meant, if you only
Right.
wrote on one side.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You might need to cut a part out, put a part in, and it's hard in a notebook.
Right.
That's
Not a notebook.
Howard talked about partnerships.
Partnerships,
Too, I don't know if anybody else.
So do you all have partnerships at your grade levels? Everybody has partners, right? Even middles?
It talks about not being either equal level or high-low, just being two kids who can get along.
Exactly.
So we talked about that in your seating, it may be a different partner for your gathering space to sit next to your partner for writing and reading, and where you went to in the room would be a different place too for writing and
Exactly.
reading.
Good point. When your reading partners are about same ability, and the writing partners don't have to be same ability. They could be two kids that can get along. That's true. And if,
Write together. You don't come up with writing together.
Right.
They just, it's somebody to listen to what you wrote and maybe give you a suggestion. So that's somebody you want to get along with, but not somebody at your same level.
okay, anything else about the setup of your room? Okay. I think it's quite time for a break, so just have a seat Okay, here's a fourth grade writing, and then we'll have middle school after that.
Writers, last night I was studying your writing, and you know there are some stories that kind of put you to sleep, and there are other stories that you just want to keep on reading. Well, your stories were ones that I wanted to just keep on reading. You had such interesting characters, and I could see how you guys were using the qualities of good narrative writing in your work, and I know that you're still using that to keep pushing yourself and meeting new goals. I was also especially pleased that you guys had your characters speaking in your story. You didn't just say, she was afraid, but instead you would write things like, Jill looked up at her mother and said, I'm afraid of thunder. In fact, right now what I want you to do is you take out your draft and find a spot in your draft where you have your characters talking or a place where you could get your characters talking. So right now, search through your draft and put your finger on that spot. Go ahead. And you might want to go to the heart of your story, guys, because that's a place where you know you wrote a lot with dialogue to stretch out the story. You might be finding a spot where you could have dialogue too. Okay, you can look at a spot where you could have dialogue. Okay, fantastic. And writers, you guys are now going to need your conch shell, okay? So get your conch shell ready, right? Ready on the side, because you're going to read that whole part right now into your conch shell like actors on Broadway. You're going to bring that part of your story to life in your conch shell. But remember, only you should be able to hear yourself. Your neighbor shouldn't be able to hear you. So right now, I want to see everyone's conch shell ready. And read that part of your story like actors on Broadway. Okay, make sure you're breathing life into it. Really act it out. Okay, look at the words on your page, okay? Do it this time. You're reading it down. Okay, writers. That was great. I could hear you guys were working like actors there. So writers, now that I know that you guys all have dialogue, I was thinking, what's the new work we could do? Well, writers, today I'm going to teach you that writers of realistic fiction reread their dialogue, almost acting out those parts, and then revise their dialogue to add in what your character would really say, the tone of voice your character would use. Are they speaking softly? Are they speaking loudly? Or are they speaking angrily? And they include specific actions so we can see what your character is really doing. So we're going to work on my piece together since you guys know about my story really well. You know that in my story, Jessica has to make this big decision about whether she's going to listen to Minnie and Gabby and stop being friends with Nikki. Well, this scene where I pulled this dialogue that we're going to revise is from when Jessica tells Minnie, I'm going to stay friends with Nikki. She makes this big decision, and Minnie reacts with dialogue. So I'm going to read this to you right now. This is the line we're going to be revising. Minnie looked at Jessica. You're a loser, she said. So writers, we're going to be revising this, making sure to include what my character really said, the tone of voice, thinking about the tone of voice my character is using, and the specific actions she would be doing. But before we can revise, remember that writers kind of act out this part. So partner one, you guys are going to be the actors and actresses. You're going to be Minnie. And as you're thinking about how you're going to act being Minnie, think about what's Minnie saying, what's her tone of voice, and what are the specific actions that doing. And partner 2, you guys are the narrators. You're going to be using your storytelling voice to to capture exactly what partner 1 is doing, okay? Partner 1, are you ready to act? Partner 2, are you ready to narrate? Turn and go. You look up, try to make sure you're letting in specific action. Okay guys, freeze for just 1 second. Actors and narrators, I'm actually noticing that our actors aren't really being expressive. I want you to remember that you're acting as me and you're thinking about what she's saying. I hear a lot of you doing that, but not just what she's saying, how she's saying it, and what are her actions, what's she doing with her body, okay? So try to be really expressive. I'm actually hearing the narrators do a fantastic job capturing what they're saying, but I need you guys to be real actors right now, okay? Turn to here I go. What specific action? So she did that. She has her hands on her hips and she makes a face. Wow. Says in a moxie. Keep going. You're losing. Miss Kerrigan, I am so impressed with the actors in this class. Right now, Ellie, will you come on up for a second? Here we go. We're going to have Ellie, we're going to revise this dialogue based on Ellie's enactment. You stand right next to Catherine. And Ellie is now Minnie. Will you act this piece of dialogue out for us? And writers, I want you to pay close attention to Ellie. Why would you even be friends with her? You're a loser. Wow, please. We're going to rewind that for a second. Oh my goodness. So guys, as we watch Ellie doing this again, I want you to be thinking about how is Minnie looking at Jessica? So as you're watching Ellie do this again, pay close attention to how Minnie is looking at Jessica. Go ahead. Why would you even want to be friends with her? You're a loser. Who thinks they can name how Minnie is looking at Jessica? Madeline? Maddie? She's sort of like scrunching her eyebrows, like she's scrunching her eyebrows. She's kind of like she did like a loser sign. Okay, I just want to know how she's looking at her. Can we name that? How is she looking at her? Like a mean face. Okay, like a mean face. Is there a word for this? She's squinting her eyes. She's squinting her eyes. Her eyes are kind of staring at Jessica. Like so she's staring. Minnie is staring at Jessica. What else is Minnie doing? She's like looking down, like up and down. You know, like why, like how would you be a friend if you're like? Okay. So Minnie is staring at Jessica. I actually remember the words that you said. You actually added on to the dialogue actually, so can you say it one more time and we're going to pay attention to the exact words she's saying. Go ahead. Why would you even want to be friends with her? You're a loser. Why would you even want to be friends with her? You're a loser. I love how you added on more dialogue. Why would you even want to be friends with her? You're a loser. Writers, are you noticing how I'm not just tucking in some words here? I'm actually rewriting this whole scene on my revision paper that I can tape over later. Okay, so I'm not just tucking it in. Fantastic. Now, I know what you said, but how did she say it? What's her tone of voice? How is she saying this? Madeline? Kind of like in a cocky voice. In a cocky voice? Excuse me, vocabulary. Like a sassy voice? In a sassy voice? She said sassily? Like sort of like a voice like with an attitude? With attitude? She said with attitude. Okay, now the last thing we need to look at are what are her specific actions. one more time. Let's pay close attention to her specific actions so that we can revise our dialogue.
Why would you even want to be friends with her? You're a loser.
What are her specific actions? Can we name them? Nolan?
She put the loser sign up.
She put the loser sign up.
She kind of popped her knee, like she had her hands on her neck.
Okay, she had her hands on her hip and made an L like a loser. She said with attitude, putting a hand on her hip and making a loser sign with her fingers. Ellie, high five. What an actress this girl is. Ellie, my goodness. So writers, I hope you see how we revised the dialogue by almost acting a little bit and then revising the dialogue to think about what our character would say, the tone of voice, she said with attitude, and specific actions that she used. Okay? So on our polys of good narrative writing, the work we'll find today is right up there. Catherine, can you touch where we're going to be, where we can look to make sure we're including that in our polys of narrative writing checklist? Writers, when you go off today to start revising your dialogue, I want you to make sure that you're revising at least one scene of dialogue, which you already know. You already pointed to that scene today, so you can do that scene today. And you can use your conch shell to act it out and bring it to life to help you revise and picture it in your mind, okay? If you're having trouble, I want you to stay on the rug, and I can help you coach in to help you with this work a little bit. Okay, so right now, can Manhattan and Brooklyn silently go off to get started on this work? Can my other writers carefully go off and get started on this work? But if you feel like you need a little extra support, please stay on the rug with me so I can support you.
Okay, what were some of the things you saw there?
I was just saying, I love the clothesline, so you can keep all those, you know, maybe like taped to the wall or something, but you can see it, you know, as you progressing.
Yep, what else? Did you notice the setup of the room and everybody gathered on the carpet and everything at the fingertips, checklist up on the wall? Anything else? The kids, some were on the floor, some were on chairs.
I like how she used a different colored marker and it went along with her finger chart as she did the writing.
Oh, yeah. And she just did that writing with them right in front of them. That's
It's easy to see the pieces of the mini lesson. This is the connection. Today I'm going to, and then getting the kids involved in creating it, and then getting them off to do their own work.
Sorry, it's going to take me a second now to get back to my...
I like too how she had them find a spot in their writing right then and there, so they kind of, can see what the purpose is going to be for today, and be able to go right back to that point when they go on their own.
Did anyone happen to see how long it was?
It was a little more than 10 minutes. I feel like it was...
Usually says on the video.
The writing is
Yeah, the
a little bit
writing
longer.
tends to be longer. And you can kind of see why now, because you're doing, to me, it's, with the writing lessons, you do a lot of guided practice right there. You're not just demonstrating, which you can, you have to involve the kids in something
anytime you bring the kids in, I think you lose a little bit of control of how long that lesson's going to be. That's something you have to really work on.
Okay, any other comments on that? That's what the mini lesson looks like. I should have looked at the time. It was a little more than 10. I thought it was 12 or something. And now we're going to watch a middle school. We got to get some videos in here for our middle school people. That's important. But why don't we take a break now? Why don't we come back at 10 after? Okay, we're going to watch a middle school mini lesson now. So notice the classroom and everything we just talked about, kind of the setup. And I think it's like 14 minutes also. Remember the mini lessons, the goal is 10, but I believe this is 14 something also.
Okay, so you have been working on your essays. And one of the things I noticed when I was looking at your essays last night is you guys have moves. Like you know something about essay writing. I was looking through all of your essays and I was thinking about some of the things that you know about how to make strong arguments that you've learned since you've been here and in your writing work. You guys know that essays always have a strong claim. You know that the claim has support, has reasons, that there's evidence for every reason you make, that the intro should hook you and set up the essay, that there's a conclusion. And the thing that impressed me the most about your writing was that you also know that essays often have a counterclaim, where you name, what would someone say who disagrees with me, okay? What we want to do today is, I'm really proud of you. I feel like you're ready to lift the level of your essay up a little bit. You've got the foundation down, now let's build the building. So the way we're going to build the building of your essay to make it feel like it's even better than the way you know how to write it now, is we're going to take a look at one of the paragraphs of an essay that I found out in the world, and we're going to look at what do authors do when they're trying to make really strong arguments, or they're trying to be really persuasive, okay? So I'm going to read this. You see, first of all, how long this body paragraph is, right? One thing we see is that authors sometimes do a lot of things when they're trying to make their points strong and persuasive. So I'm going to read this piece, and what I want you guys to think about is what is it that this author does that makes his body paragraph strong and persuasive. Okay, you got it? All right, let's read. In addition to the fact that Barclays Stadium adds an unimaginable volume of traffic to the already overcrowded streets of Brooklyn, the arena does not, as was promised, improve the small businesses that live there. My opponents argue, as the stadium developer Bruce Ratner and his team did, that the swarms of basketball fans will only improve the economics of the area. They say the stadium will pour money into the mom and pop stores that litter the streets of Park Slope, Fort Greene, and Prospect Heights like bees pollinating the flowers of a garden. For example, they argue that building owners will rake in the dough from high rents and that businesses will flourish. But this has not proven true so far. Truth is, fans don't want to go to a small Park Slope cafe. They want Chili's. Consequently, the fans' money will go into the already deep pockets of the Shake Shack, or to the big steakhouses owned by Texas businessmen, or new chain sports bars built to serve the New Jersey fans of the Brooklyn Nets. Ratner and Co. either did not understand this, or did not choose to mention it. And what about the small businesses of Brooklyn? Good luck to them. Take the Triangle Sports Store on Fifth Avenue in Flatbush. Existing on that corner for 97 years, Triangle Sports shut its doors recently to make way for what is being called a neighborhood-friendly restaurant. In what world does a sports store not fit in within a neighborhood that includes an enormous sports arena? The answer is in the Barclays world, where every corner is an opportunity to make more money for big business at the expense of the real neighborhoods surrounding it. Okay, so let's take a second, and with the person sitting next to you, can you turn and talk about what is it that makes this part of an essay feel strong and persuasive? Okay, turn and talk. A lot of people the big store should be there. Now, developed, okay? Let's hear, Ryan and Nitin, you were saying something that felt really strong.
Yeah, I was talking about like the story had a lot of specific details.
Oh, okay, so you're saying that the evidence or the details he had to use wasn't just general, that he got really specific or precise. Can you cite a line in this essay that does that work?
When he was saying that the Triangle Sports Store on 5th Avenue, it shut its doors, like it closed, because it had to be a new store there, because it didn't fit in the neighborhood.
Okay, so instead of just saying as it's evidence, some stores shut down, and that's really sad. They were really specific by naming the Triangle Store. Really nice. So we can say that one way we can develop our essays is that we can add really specific, or sometimes people say precise details as our evidence. Really nice work. And Noah and Sean, what did you guys say?
We were talking about how, also about the 97 years. If store's going to be there 97 years, then that says something that it was making a business that people don't want to go to the big store models, that they wanted their store, the corner store, because they can rely on the small business. Unlike the,
so let me stop you there. So guys, why does that detail, why does that piece of specific evidence make it a stronger argument?
It's because that it said it didn't belong to the neighborhood, and it kind of, if you have a sports arena, it kind of connects to a sports store. And if you have a big arena that doesn't have a sports store, it's like you're going to a sports event, but you don't have anything to like support the team.
Okay, so let me stop you. One thing I hear that they're saying is that when we're choosing our evidence, we want to choose really strong, persuasive evidence, right? The story about the Triangle Sports Store isn't just any piece of evidence. It feels like it's really persuasive, right? So we choose the best or most persuasive evidence. Okay, let's hear some others. I didn't hear you in the back. What are some things, and what did you guys say?
We talked about the tension in the essay in the paragraph. So one of the words that, or one of the sentences that was used is "good luck to them," which was kind of sarcastic.
Oh, so you're talking about the tone in the piece. Okay, so you're saying that you feel like this essay isn't necessarily just here are my reasons, here's my evidence, but that actually there's some tone, there's some voice in there. And what tone did you call it? It's a little sarcastic. And what line did you cite as being sarcastic? Oh, right here it says, and what about the small businesses of Brooklyn? Good luck to them, right? You kind of know that the author might not really mean that. Nice. Good luck to them. Okay, so we can use tone to give voice to our essays. Okay, let's hear one more. Who has a really good Aya?
So during the evidence, right, they could use furniture word in addition, for example.
Beautiful.
An opponent.
Okay, so a couple transition words we see is in addition. What's the other one you noticed?
For example, my opponents argue.
My opponents argue. Got consequently there, that's kind of great. And somewhere in here there's a for example. Beautiful. Before we shift gears, is there anything that you talked about that you feel like, if I don't get this on the chart, it's going to be so sad? Does anyone have a comment that you feel like needs to make it on the chart? Michael?
It says that Triangle Sports shut its doors recently to make way for what is being called a neighborhood-friendly restaurant.
Okay.
And it was like a supporting evidence.
Okay, so one thing you're saying is you're naming again, like that there's this idea that the evidence really supports the reasons. So one thing I hear you saying is that we can add to this list that we should always connect how our evidence supports our reasons. Okay, so let's take a moment right there, guys. And this is great. You did a really nice job thinking what makes this part of an essay feel persuasive and like a strong argument. Okay, these are all moves that we can use to develop our essays. Right now, the trick is that we got to get this into our writing. Right? It's one thing to read what somebody else did and say, yeah, that's good, or yeah, I would change that. But really, the point of this work is that we lift our own writing, and I think you're really ready for this. So, could you take out your drafts of your essays? And right now, with the person next to you, can you turn and talk? And can you name what are 2 things on this list or anything else that you noticed that you think you want to do to your essay that this author did to theirs? Turn and talk.
Research about it.
It's like a creative
The proper emotions, like kids get bullied, right? And then they have lots of emotions. I didn't add that, and like that's what I'm gonna add, so I can relate like how they felt when they were bullied. So that's what I need to add to make this essay, and to make it more persuasive to let them stop bullying.
I think I should add more details.
Okay guys, let's come together. So, really nice job. I feel like you did a really nice job of thinking about what is going to make your essay get developed in stronger or more persuasive ways. There's one thing that a bunch of you said that I just want to add to our list here, because I think it is so important in really, really great essays. Many of you noticed in this essay, and that you want to put it in your work, that this author does work with the counterclaim, right? And that not only does this author name the counterclaim, all up here, right? My opponents argue, this is what they say, the people who disagree with me, but that this author actually also spends a lot of time taking apart that argument and saying why it's wrong and I'm right, right? How many of you are going to try that in your essays? A bunch of you, right? That's such important work. So I'm going to add it to our chart, okay? So I'm going to say not only name the counter argument, but one word that people use when they sort of talk back against someone who disagrees with them is they say they rebut them. Okay? So, but, rebut. So, class, your work today is going to be to revise your essays. Okay? And you have a couple goals for how you're going to revise them. But know that you obviously can do any of these things if you feel like your essays need that work, okay? I have a feeling that your work on your essays is so big today that you're probably going to want to start over on a new piece of paper, right? And say, okay, my foundation is laid, but instead of trying to add things to the margins, that you'll want to go ahead and say, let's start from scratch and make sure we add in this new stuff as we go, okay? All right, really nice work today, guys.
Okay, what are some comments about that?
Well, she was obviously pressed for space as well, so they just sat on top of desks and she still gathered them together, but the kids were quiet and still.
I was surprised how still they were in that kind of proximity. You didn't hear a lot of clattering or.
She was such. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, a lot like the second grade one, they were all massaging together the text. Like they revised the second grade one as they went. Instead of just talking about it, they were marking this and writing this with very visual.
And Mary and I were saying, why would she write that whole thing out? Because the kids all had copies of the same thing. And we thought, you're right, you could just put that on it. But we thought maybe to make it more authentic, she wrote it and then she's doing some revision and marking things. Maybe, I'm not sure. But she is, wow, she's such a good teacher. How she takes what the kids say, like this comment, this comment, this comment. She says, what I hear you saying is, and she revises it into some powerful statement that she's so good at that. I know. And I even thought what they read was really hard. Didn't you guys think? I thought, wow, it was really hard.
She knew a lot about persuasive writing herself.
think
And she
so.
must have been teaching this. This wasn't her first year with this unit of study. Your first year, you're going to be learning just as much as the kids about writing, I think. I would. And so I feel like she's obviously pretty expert at
That's a
knowing
good point.
the types of things that you do when you add evidence.
Those kids were so
Depth of-
engaged.
Yeah, the depth of understanding of the kids was, I know they're older, I guess it's sometimes hard to, think that far down the road, but boy, they really seemed to be very in tune to, anything that had been previously taught. They were, able to pick things out quickly and
They were so
very,
engaged.
yeah.
If you've got a second grader who's writing to their teacher a persuasive letter in second grade, they are going to be very good by the time they get
That's
to
exactly
the
right.
6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Because they know about those kinds of things. But I was thinking, like Kay was like, I didn't know that's a way to make persuasive text better. I didn't know that myself. So, that's professional development for me that, like I said, is built into those.
Right. And Joanne always said, this is professional development for us in a box right here. That is our professional development. We will all learn so much by using it. It's like a course in itself. A year-long course. What were you going to say, Sue?
Incidental. She had such good classroom control and high behavior expectations that she used a new word, rebut, and nobody snickered.
You're right. And some teachers say, well, it's a video, and she put the bad kids in another room, and teachers say that, but Joanne always said that these videos were done in the Bronx, and they were done all over New York City, and that these are not special classrooms of just the brightest kids. That's what Joanne always said. So she said these are classrooms like ours.
And another thing that I noticed, she wasn't, in the primary grades or in elementary school, you're down at their level and you're pulling them in. But she was standing up, and the kids were, she got them as close as she could, but she still had them engaged.
Right.
And, I felt like they still felt like this was a, I don't know, learning
Intimate
environment.
time, kind of.
Yeah.
But appropriate.
Yeah.
Right. And
for
some
their
of them were
age.
still in chairs, but at least they were pulled in a little bit closer.
Right.
Any other comments on that one? Oh, and from the last video, Mary had caught this, that they were using yellow paper. And remember Lucy said, don't use the yellow paper.
Because you can't see pencil on it, but you're not supposed to be using pencils, so maybe yellow paper with markers is just fine.
One of the other advantages that I noticed by having the people closer, the kids closer, she used a more conversational tone and not in the teacher voice when you're talking to the whole classroom, that she could just converse.
It's like they're having a conversation.
Exactly. It's like you're sharing something really important with them, and that's the whole idea of pulling them close. Okay, we're not going to watch, I'm just going to show you the seating. That's what this is. We're not watching the whole video or anything. I'm just going to zip through to like 3 minutes and 5 minutes, just so middle school can see an example of the seating.
While you're doing that, I was also noticing, different people have different personalities. So when you see these reading
You guys have been working so hard.
Go ahead, Mary.
Sometimes, the way Laura would do a mini lesson might sound different. You can see how this teacher had a more mature sounding, you know, she's not talking down to them, she's not, you know, I think you make it work for your personality, first of all, and your audience who you're engaging with. You know, it looks different at the primary than it does in the intermediate, as it does in the middle school.
And each of us would probably deliver Lucy's words a little differently,
Right.
you know, according to our own personality.
But one thing for sure, that last teacher, she spoke to those kids like you can do everything I'm teaching you, and I totally believe in you. You can hear it in her voice, like, oh, great point. She treats them like they are with her. In the palm of her hands, they can do anything she tells them. She totally believes in them and expects them to live up to those expectations, and you can see that they get that. And they feel that. Ah.
They're working so hard.
Okay, this is a reading lesson in middle school, but I'm just going to try to zip through here. It'll let me. Just so you can look at the seating.
Nervously, as if there was something she didn't want to have to say, or something she didn't want to have to believe. Mother, said Bruno, marching towards her.
Sorry, I'm having to guess where it is.
This is the interaction between Bruno and his mom.
It's gonna pan
when he
around
gets
the
home
room
to
and
find
you'll see their
Maria's family
sitting.
servant packing all this stuff in the bedroom. You guys remember that part? Right? I'm just going to read a very little section of it. And the little section that I read, I'm going to be thinking in my head about not only the main character, but also push myself to think a little bit about who some of these secondary or minor characters are inside of this chunk of text. Okay. Maria shook her head and pointed towards the staircase behind him, where Bruno's mother
Okay, now this right here.
just appeared. She was a tall woman with long red hair, and she bundled into a sort of net behind her head, and she was twisting her hands together nervously, as if there was something she didn't want to have to say, or something she...
Go a little bit further here. Give that about 5 minutes.
going on here. And I'll tell you, my first grade readers, is I got really angry at the mother.
Some are
I
chairs.
got really angry at the mom because I was like,
benches.
Mom, why aren't you explaining to your...
That's all. I just wanted to show you another picture of the seating for middle school. Okay.
We're going to go back and talk a little bit more about management, and we really hit that hard yesterday with Amy. She did a great job talking about that, and you people that are new today had it with your training. Management was a big part. So I just wanted to start out with a little video, maybe something new for classroom management that you might learn from this video about classroom management.
So, tutorial on a new behavioral management system. It's called facial behavioral management for all of our new teachers and teachers whose classroom are just a little bit out of control. So if you can master the facial behavioral management basis, you'll be able to do all right. This behavioral management system actually came from church moms. They were able to control their kids in church just with their facial features. I'm only going to share one at a time because you need to practice. So the first phase in our behavioral management system is quick change. This causes all the kids in your classroom to stop and think, am I doing something wrong? This is what it looks like. Boys and girls, get out your snack, and we're all going to eat together, so make sure. And see, it causes all the kids to stop and think, am I doing something wrong? So you really need to get your quick change down. Now, expert teachers can do a quick change with a head whip. Quick change with a head whip are for those kids that aren't quite attentive to what you're doing. And so the head whip helps them understand that quick change is coming my way. This is what it looks like. Okay, boys and girls, get your snacks out. We're all going to continue eating. And that child that has no clue what's going on, all of a sudden thinks to themselves, what was that? Why'd that come my way? Now, here's some advice with a head whip. If you're fat, it doesn't work. Because your face jiggles. It looks like this. Okay, boys and girls? And when your face jiggles, the whole classroom laughs. So you have to skip to number 2. But I'm not going to give you number 2 until tomorrow because you need to be able to practice on this. Because if you don't get the quick change down, then things won't work well for your classroom. Now, tomorrow we'll be talking about the defined child. That gives you the blank stare continue behavior. Blank stare continue behavior is when they stare at you while slowly continuing the behavior to see what you're going to do. This is what it looks like. And dealing with that child, you got to do more than the quick change. So tune in tomorrow. But remember, tonight, make sure you practice your quick change.
Anyway, thought maybe you could get, something new to try in your classroom. You've probably seen a lot of his things already. He's awesome. He's so funny. You guys have heard of Gary? Gary or Jerry Brooks, I'm not sure. But I actually met him. I was in Columbus, Ohio at a reading recovery conference, and I'm in line to check out for the hotel, and I'm just people watching like, God, he's right behind me. I was so excited. I said, are you the guy that does the videos? He probably gets that all the time. But he's like, yeah. And I said, what are you doing here? And he says, oh, I'm on the planning committee for the next Reading Recovery Conference. So he's an administrator. So anyway, they are doing Reading Recovery down in North or South Carolina too. So anyway, he's great. So getting back to classroom management, I just kind of wanted to briefly review, and then we're going to just read some short sections out of here that's a little different, maybe with writing workshop than reading workshop. But I thought what we could do is just kind of start, you've seen some videos of some amazing teachers. And think back to yesterday from when we talked about management, and those of you that weren't here yesterday to what you had learned about management during the workshop. What are some things that you think the teachers have done or that you learned that really helped set up so they don't have to worry about management and they can get to the work they need to do, teaching, reading, and writing? So as far as, let's just start with, like, during the mini lesson, let's just share out some things. What do you need to remember during the mini lesson? It's probably the same in reading as it is in writing. Any ideas?
Our expectations.
Yeah, clear expectations. Right, you get what you expect. Anything else? Have everything accessible, having things accessible so you're not fumbling, trying to find your anchor charts or your teacher's manual, things like that.
And waiting for everyone to be at their spot and quiet.
Right, not starting.
Right,
not starting till everybody's quiet, because if you...
We're working on it.
Okay. If you start talking, teaching, and there's still kids that are lingering over, that's teaching them that it's okay, I can keep talking, she'll start teaching. So waiting, and that you want them to know how important it is that you have their full attention before you start. Okay.
It's predictable.
Right, the structure, the framework of the workshop, they know, right, what's coming, which seems to help. It's not a surprise for them. Okay, how about explicitly teaching? How to come to the floor. Explicitly teach, turn and talk. I want you to think about what you had for breakfast this morning. Turn and talk to your partner about what you had for breakfast, and just having them practice those procedures. So explicitly teaching. Let's see. Anything else? Great ideas that you guys remember from yesterday. Okay, ways to get their attention. Yeah, we talked about Amy's chime yesterday. That's good. Alicia had a good idea yesterday. When you do your mid-workshop teaching point or you need everybody's attention, go to that spot where you know they're all going to look and they know that's your important spot to stand, right?
The gal in the last video.
Yeah.
That was good.
the snapping to get their attention. Maybe a finger counting for them to know when you get to 5, you will need everybody there. Just little teacher tricks. I also noticed both the videos Laura showed, the teacher sent the kids off with a purpose. So today, boys and girls, when you go back to your seat, I want you to think about blah, blah, just giving them a purpose. Or find the spot in your writing where you're going to go back and add a claim, whatever the skill is that you're teaching. Anything else? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and do some reading again. So in the primary book, we're going to kind of break this up into 2 parts. And our discussion is going to be really pretty brief. And we're going to skip some parts in this management section. There's a section on managing conferencing, and tomorrow Laura's doing a whole part on conferencing for writing. So we're going to skip that. So if the primary people, you're going to read 50 to 53. Okay. And you are going to just get your little Post-its. Let's do stop and jots. And just mark some things that you think in a quick little discussion, you just kind of want to tell what you read that you felt was important to remember. Okay, so 50 to 53. And I'm going to have you stop on page 53. Working on different parts of the writing process, I think it's called. Okay, so you're going to read that much and stop and jot. Intermediate's going to do page 52 to 56. And you're going to stop at conferring. So there's just a little bit on page 56. So you're going to stop there. And middle, you're going to do 52 to 57, and you're going to stop at conferring. So don't read that conferring section. All right, so you can just stop and jot, and we will get into groups again to discuss briefly, and then we'll finish reading just a little bit more before the end of the day. So we'll work on those sections first. ahead and get into our groups. Okay, we'll go ahead and break up into those groups again of intermediate, middle, and primary, or primary. Was primary up here? Primary, middle, and intermediate, since those chairs are set up. And we're just going to do a quick share out, just some things that you felt were important you might have written on your sticky note, and just share those with your group. So we'll give you about 6 minutes to share. Okay, we're going to be efficient.
Okay, what I noticed in this that we almost always were doing these activities. Kids were pretty much in the exact same spot. There wasn't a whole lot of, well, I've already finished this, I was already on my second and third piece. Right. Well, there was yeah, so it was much more like how you saw videos where this is our acted like teaching a lesson, but that may not be what they're working on. But that was a true videos. I like the videos better, frankly, for that reason. That was something hard for us to get over, was the fact that you might be, your focus might be on dialogue. It's like you just don't want to really get used to it wasn't something yeah, and that's hard. That's hard as a teacher. You know, I'm a teacher, something I want you to practice. Yeah, right. Instead of just thinking of as adding it to the repertoire, you want to get it to It's really easy. It's so easy to just do that. But like, you have to do that mindset. But yes, definitely. She modeled the rights to this is how you're doing it. If you were right there with us. We're really the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things. I told you they had them.
Well, and I think what I enjoy that.
Oh,
Some of our last few days, and so like one of our units also, now you need us to get there. And so they were so, yeah, personal characters. I had to here, they need to get water right levels. Yeah. I think that was one thing that we need to know and keep it at that.
What, some comments that we heard is just I wrote it down because like we're excited about this in fifth grade. I have been as a new to share, like constant, usually visible. Okay, so this is not the teach place to ask this question. But are you going to talk about whether or not candidates have to go for a visibility cloak? And like when I'm wearing this, my invisibility can't come out of me. You can ask them. She's going to do or with the probably
Right.
ears or
Yes. District charge, right. You're teaching something language or for example, like fourth grade does American Revolution, but they write in out topics, but they're like choose.
they have nothing on
Sometimes it's guided.
Didn't have the book.
You know, you're studying so literacy and you're right. But you still get to choose.
So we had them
skip charts.
and just go back to it at a later date. Then we heard that it would be like this read puts that in there. It is overhead writing. How to read in history or working on it teaches you the strategy and how you narrative.
There's one that's like
So those kinds of decisions that
Teaching similes and metaphors or things like that, and they go back and choose, maybe they want to write about
you have set down and
things that happens to that person.
thought about how the reading and the writing go together.
Mom, and
so
the time my mom lost her wedding ring.
Just decided that it's really late, that because it's from the conversations that we heard that you need to follow that.
right. And she
Good
teaches at
reason
first
for
grade,
it.
maybe then you start saying, this is quiet time, now this is talking time.
And we
Sixth grade, we do have them already. Sixth grade has this Saturday.
Back to back. It's not.
Sorry. They can't really know. They have the kids for like 8 hours. So you for your second semester. So they're staying with seventh grade.
Like kids on top.
as far as the bogging down,
She would make us say, I'm sitting for
writing about.
And 9 weeks later. You just writing anything, you had to keep going.
Making positive, we have they're choosing, you're not choosing.
Yeah, she was like, what? That's the approach. Okay, so we don't have.
I don't think we've ever done.
So that's the literary aspect. Okay. So you have the literary aspect. Ways to help write. There's like a archive writing.
Yeah, you have three
Sometimes I did like third grade. And I'd be like, I found out that you're not ready for
Something that's really hard for teachers to do, this was on the next page, I kind of read on this, says you do accept that you do work that is less than perfect. And that's really hard. we're used to the old days fixing it. And something that's perfect. Like, yeah,
I can't wait to see what you
we
decide.
said that there was a really perfect.
And I totally
Something on your bed?
Okay, I think we need to go ahead. We're gonna move on. I just kind of wanted to see your thoughts, anything in your group about the section about writing stamina. You know, you talk about a kid that's just gonna sit there the whole time, and then after 40 minutes, they still have nothing on their paper. What are some ways that it talks about you can manage, so that way everybody gets something written or to build up their stamina? We can start with you guys. I know we talked about that.
We talked about, like, some of it may be not just their brain stamina, but the fact that they haven't been holding a pencil and writing all summer. So by calling their attention for just a short, I can't remember what you called it, in the middle to just kind of give them a break from the physical act of writing, you can just call their attention. Hey, there's something I'm noticing, look at their hand, that some of your hands are getting tired. Oh, while you're wheeling your hand, turn to your partner and tell them what you're writing about. And then they typically will say more as they're talking than what they were writing, and then point them back to their writing.
You guys have anything in your section about stamina? Not really so much.
Maybe just teaching them strategies when they're stuck. Okay, you start by maybe just really read, then do this.
I think that mid-workshop teaching point is a good stopping point too, and it kind of shifts their thinking just a little bit. Let them get started on something else. How about, I'm not the only teacher in this room, look at all the teachers around you. You know, teaching them to rely on each other too. That you're not the only one that can help them, so collaborate.
And sometimes if you're stuck on one piece, you just start another one. I mean, if you reread the anchor chart and you reread your piece and you're just stuck, how are you gonna, what are you gonna do with this piece? Well, then you just start another one. Because, sometimes authors do that, they things down and you have several works going at one time.
Especially at the primary, they do that a lot. They can write 3 stories in one day sometimes.
In the primary, they can add on to their picture, and then that jogs their mind about, oh, I can write on that now.
Okay, so we're going to read the Managing the Share. We didn't get to share yesterday about reading, so we felt that was pretty important today for you to read. So primary, pages 56 to 58. You can either go back to your table or stay here and kind of wait for everybody and do a discussion, however you feel more comfortable reading. Middle school, you guys are going to just read page 59. And intermediate, 58 to 59. Managing the Share.
She might. She might. She is so good.
My first and sixth grade, the kids create their own drama. Creative.
It's a little bit longer than the other two.
I can do it in the No, I'm just going to say, can you just talk about it right here, because it talks about lack of inspiration, like encouraging, but making it exciting for kids. If you wanted to, Kay, we could chime in about celebrations and some things our teachers have done with celebrations. Or like put some books in the library, write down things like that. If you want to. And I just forgot all about it. I'm sorry for doing that. See if they don't think writing is doable, they just do it. And that inspires them for their parents to come see it. It's a celebration.
It's a celebration. I was just saying that's what John did. Well, she didn't make as much as she does not have here. So, yeah, she doesn't make much of everyone. You know, you try all the ideas on your work, or some share. You already tried that, and then here's where we go.
I need to say that
made a mistake. And so it's hard.
First, first and actually, she moved to
Well, no, like, when she knows what I'm doing, she probably can just work. But then you're like, I just sit there and I just walk because probably like,
But I will say after spring break, I don't know what they wrote for spring break.
Well, it depends on your needs and how it goes.
There's some days where
So it doesn't matter.
Okay, let's come together. I feel like I'm rushing this. The share is so very important. Just primary share something that you can maybe teach to the middle and intermediate. Anything special about the share? How it's managed?
I think it's important to share like every day versus just at the end of the unit.
Right.
I don't know, like since I had experience with this a little bit, I had to share every day just so I could give my others who wouldn't write during writing workshop a little motivation to be like, ooh, I want to be up there reading for the class. So that's kind of how I used it, is to share every day. And it also helped like, wow, did you see the teaching point you're trying to make? You can say, oh wow, she really got, we got that teaching point to do it. And then who was it was happening too? So that's kind of how I used it.
I think it's sometimes teachers cut it out because they run out of time, but it is so important. I think we need to make just 5 minutes of ways to the end of writing.
And it is supposed to be every day.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
And motivation is exactly, I mean, it goes back to the research that kids, the social aspect of being literate, kids crave that. They want to share you're having them write for a purpose to real people, so you want them to be able to share that. So it does increase motivation a lot if they get the opportunity. They know that their classmates are going to get to hear it. You know, they want.
When they may say, oh, I'm not sure tomorrow in my writing. You know, I mean, they learn through that. How about middle school? Anything different about the share? How do they handle that middle school?
I think one thing I learned over the last couple of years doing it is, especially on the personal narratives, sometimes they have to have the option to share because some of those personal narratives they write, they don't want to share. And so I usually let them accumulate a couple stories and then they can pick which one they want to.
That's a good
And then the other thing we've had to do is because they are writing longer, sometimes they will have to pick a certain section. Like if we're working on leads, you can share your lead versus the whole story because there's no way. Right.
Okay, intermediate.
We talked about either sharing the whole class or sharing with your partner or sharing at your table. So that it's not always just one kid that's getting to share, but maybe some days you have everybody shares with their partner, everybody shares with their table.
Right, yeah.
Choosing that one that really focuses in on whatever you're really trying, whatever point you're trying to get across, and you'll use it as well.
One of the things we talked about is, kids that sit there and they don't have anything to write. Well, how do you get them motivated? If one, they know they may have to share or they get to share, but also the end of unit celebrations. That's one thing we wanted to be sure to, make a big point of. That is important to kids. At the end of the unit, you have a celebration. I just know with Lincoln, I have a little video, I don't know if we'll have time, but 4th grade had their end of one of their units, the parents came, I just went into video, and oh my gosh, the parents got to go to different kids, not just their own kid, but if they knew somebody else's parent was going to listen to my story, if they know that celebration is coming, Second grade, they do a poetry unit. One of our teachers did poetry and popcorn from 1:30 to 2:30, and she sent an invitation out, even to Shanna, just if anybody wants to come and listen to our poetry. And she had popcorn, and, kids took turns coming up to share their poetry, just one poem or maybe two if it's a short one.
At
So
Wilson, they did a poetry slam, and they had a really neat little, with their projector, they had like a curtain, like a stage curtain projected, so that the student would kind of stand up with the curtain behind them. And they sort of had even like a little spotlight on them, and it was just little things that made it kind of extra special,
Sometimes they have cookies out and lemonade, and parents come, and kids are scattered around the room, and then parents or another class or whoever, they come around to each child and sit with them, listen to their story. And kids love it. Oh my gosh, they love those celebrations.
Yeah, and even if you can't, maybe not every end of the unit can involve parents coming in, but just that like kindergartners get to go to fifth grade celebration or across grade levels or in maybe the cooks and the custodians and the music teacher or whoever has time during that celebration to come so that the kids can share their writing with people outside of the classroom.
Beth, can you do some of that with the other kindergarten? Did you guys read each other's?
Yeah, we said like a really good story. We sent them to the other kindergarten class and they shared it in front of their class. And then I know Dana did it. We were writing persuasive letters, and she invited our principal down, and the kids got to hear it.
They did that, right. They were to the principal, and she sat and listened.
Yeah.
And Dana had kindergartners that finished and published their books, and then they set them on these fancy little stands in the library, and their books were in the library. That was really cool, and other kids came and picked up their books and read them, and it was really motivating. Those kids loved it. And also she had, it was in the Superpowers unit, she had a little Superman logo, and she put it on some of our doors, so that her students, she would send them out, go find a Superman logo, and they would find one of them, like if it was on my door. One of her students would show up at my door, can I read my story to you? That was throughout the school. And oh gosh, they loved it. And also with that unit, she got little cheap capes, little superhero capes that they would put on during reading time. And they love that. I guess it's reading. I veered over to reading, but.
Yeah, I had a writing one that somebody did, and now I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Oh, it was third grade. It was the argument unit, persuasive, and they wrote a letter, or somebody, the story was about we should have, maybe they came up with it as a group, I don't remember, but to have pajama day. And they invited Mrs. Roletter to come in, and they read this to her, and we actually had a special pajama day because the third grade wrote about it to persuade her. It was persuasive. To persuade her why we should have pajama day. So we actually had a pajama day thanks to the third graders. So, yeah, we kind of involved everybody in this one. Okay.
And if you can't find anybody else to come to your celebration, we will come. We would love to do that.
Also, Marie is really good about coming in. If you let her know that you're having a celebration, she would love to come and videotape it for you. It's something you could put on Seesaw, or if you want to share it out with parents through video. She's very, very willing to work with your schedule and very willing to come and videotape if you ever want to do it that way.
And that's Marie Henderson. She's our technology person in the district. If you don't know that.
Well, we want to try to start and end on time, so it's 3:30, so we want to let you go. We have more, but we'll just regroup and figure it out tomorrow. So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, everybody.